Chapter 2599. In terms of true strength, even if Tianxing was stronger than other great emperors, there was a limit to it. However, her strength was the bane of all holy spirits. She was practically the natural enemy of all holy spirits. Even the dragon race and phoenix race were no exception to this. Many dragons died under her sword back then. Although the four saint venerables of the ancient land were also holy spirits, there was still a big gap between them and the dragon race. Even the dragon race was not Tianxing's opponent, so how could they dare to face him head-on? So when they realized that Zhang Ruoxi was a descendant of Tianxing, they were so scared that their faces turned pale, as if doomsday was coming. Fan Hua, you can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. Song Dog swallowed his saliva and stared at Zhang Ruoxi, whose temperament had changed greatly, and asked in horror, "Are you sure she is a descendant of Tianxing?" Fan Hua smiled bitterly and said bitterly, "You have also inherited the memories of your ancestor. Can't you recognize that sword?" Song Dog was speechless. The Tianxing sword was the divine weapon used by Tianxing in the past. In their inherited memories, it had always been sealed in the blood door. The reason why they sealed this place, and didn't let anyone near the blood door, was not because they were afraid that a monster race would enter and obtain source strength and transform into a holy spirit. Their biggest fear was that the Tianxing sword would reappear in the world. But now this fear had come true. It was not that someone entered the blood door and brought out the Tianxing sword, but that it was summoned by a human girl in her early 20s. The Tianxing sword could only be used by Tianxing and his descendants. With the sword in hand, Zhang Ruoxi's identity was obvious. "It's over," Song Dog murmured. The most worrying thing had happened. The Tianxing sword had reappeared in the world. The bloodline of a descendant of Tianxing had awakened. From now on, the holy spirits of this world would not have a good life. And the first to bear the brunt was undoubtedly the four saint venerables present. A descendant of Tianxing. Yang Kai was also dumbfounded. He never expected Zhang Ruoxi to be the legendary descendant of Tianxing, the natural enemy of all holy spirits. This news was simply too explosive. He was stunned for a long time and couldn't react. But as he thought about it, he suddenly remembered something. Back then in the Four Seasons realm, when they entered the Flowing Time Temple, Ruoxi suddenly disappeared for a while. When she reappeared, she was wearing a pink cloud's phoenix robe. That was a defensive emperor artifact whose value was immeasurable. Ruoxi told him that it was a gift from a guy named Qiongqi. Qiongqi was a famous fierce beast among divine spirits. Yang Kai had always wondered why such a powerful existence would give Zhang Ruoxi such a precious treasure. But now he understood that Qiongqi must have sensed the power of Zhang Ruoxi's bloodline, and didn't dare to embarrass her. He was afraid that if he forced her to the limit, her bloodline would awaken ahead of time. If that really happened, Qiongqi would not have a good life. Duan Hongchen should have seen through it as well. But this matter was too important, so he didn't dare to reveal it. All kinds of signs indicated that Ruoxi was indeed a descendant of Tianxing. So it's like this. Yang Kai smiled bitterly. The development of the situation was beyond his imagination. He never expected that Ruoxi's bloodline power would bring him such a big shock after awakening. "Big stone." Zhang Ruoxi suddenly looked at Sherhua coldly and said in a cold voice, "How do you want to die?" Sherhua trembled, and a look of extreme horror appeared on his face. The flames in his eyes jumped rapidly, showing his inner turmoil. He didn't put the previous Zhang Ruoxi in his eyes at all. A mere human girl from the Third Order Dao Source realm. He could kill her with a single breath. But the current Zhang Ruoxi, however, it made him feel uneasy and hopeless. He had just expressed his intention to kill Zhang Ruoxi, and before that, he had ravaged Yang Kai for so long. Zhang Ruoxi definitely hated him to the bone. Today there were many monster race experts and saint masters present. Any one of them could survive, but his future was bleak. Sherhua obviously realized this as well. Black flames erupted from his body, and he put on a strong front. "So what if you're a descendant of Tianxing? This king is a descendant of an ancient divine spirit. How can you kill this king before you grow up?" As he shouted angrily, he turned his head to look at Fan Ku and the others and said, Friends, Tianxing is the public enemy of all divine spirits. Tianxing's power greatly restrains us divine spirits. If you still want to sleep peacefully in the future, why don't you join forces with this king and kill her before she grows up? As soon as this statement came out, Yang Kai's face sank, and he nervously looked at the other three Saint Masters. As Shihua said, Ruoxi had only just awakened her bloodline after all, so it was still unknown how strong she could be. However, the strength of these Saint Masters was unquestionable. Once the four of them joined forces, Ruoxi might not be able to contend against them. What he saw was an eager expression on Song Dog's face, obviously moved by Shihua's words. On the other hand, Fan Ku and Luan Feng didn't show much of a reaction. It was unknown what they were thinking. Their reaction also indirectly affected Song Dog. He frowned and thought for a while before shaking his head slightly and suppressing the restlessness in his heart. Seeing this, Shihua's heart sank and he shouted angrily, "You are willing to give her space to grow? Do you know that if she grows up, there will be no place for the divine spirits in this world?" How could Fan Ku and the others not know this? When Tianxing was wreaking havoc, those divine spirits who were struggling at death's door had all gone into hiding, lest she find them, kill them, and take away their divine spirit essence. It wasn't until Tianxing disappeared for tens of thousands of years that divine spirits gradually dared to come out. Shihua's words were not without reason, but Fan Ku and the others didn't dare to draw fire to themselves. In the face of Tianxing's bloodline, it was an instinctive fear and panic. Even if they wanted to deal with Zhang Ruoxi, they didn't have the courage. Fan Ku even closed his eyes, acting as if he didn't want to easily offend Zhang Ruoxi. However, this didn't mean that they didn't want Shihua to test the waters first. If Zhang Ruoxi, the descendant of Tianxing, didn't live up to her name, then it wouldn't be too late for the three of them to act. However, if Zhang Ruoxi really did inherit Tianxing's power, Shihua would be the best test stone. Good. Shihua laughed loudly, and his eyes were filled with ridicule. His gaze swept over Fan Ku and the others, and he said firmly, "Since that's the case, then this king will end her. There's no need to thank me." As soon as he finished speaking, Shihua let out a furious roar, and his already massive body swelled up even more. Black flames wrapped around his body and his eyes blazed. The ground around him melted in an instant as a scorching heat filled the air. Dang. Shihua took a step forward and rushed in front of Zhang Ruoxi in a few steps, swinging his right arm back and aiming a huge fist at Zhang Ruoxi. From now on, there will be no more descendants of Tianxing in this world. Shihua sneered, his aura violent. He was not a kind person to begin with. Otherwise, he would not have massacred the entire Black Tortoise sect 30,000 years ago. Back then, the Black Tortoise sect incident happened because one of the disciples was out traveling and had eyes, but failed to see and offended him. However, he rushed to the Black Tortoise sect and massacred the entire sect of over 10,000 people. From the way he abused Yang Kai today, it could be seen that Shihua was extremely cruel, even worse than the infamous Qiongqi Great Beast. The huge fist smashed towards Zhang Ruoxi, causing a gust of wind to blow Ruoxi's hair and dress. Fan Ku also opened his eyes at this moment and stared at the scene, wanting to know if Ruoxi, the descendant of Tianxing, lived up to her name. The Luan Feng and Song Gu were also watching nervously. The third brother screamed and reached out to cover his eyes, as if he didn't dare to watch the next scene. Yang Kai also shouted, "Be careful, Ruoxi." Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Ruoxi simply stood there without the slightest sign of fluctuation in her strength. She didn't even try to evade or defend herself. In the face of this earth-shattering blow, her expression was as indifferent as a passing breeze. Standing in front of the huge stone fire, she looked as small as an ant. The visual conflict she gave off was extremely strong. Shihua was overjoyed and his attacks became more and more ruthless, grinning. "You're just SSO." He seemed to be able to see the scene of Zhang Ruoxi being blown to pieces by him. If he could really kill Zhang Ruoxi, then all the divine spirits in this world would owe him a favor. This favor was very precious. When that time came, even Fan Ku and the others would have to act according to his whims in the ancient lands. "Kneel." Seeing that the huge fist was about to hit Zhang Ruoxi, she suddenly reached out and stroked her hair behind her ear, spitting out 2 words from her red lips. What? Fan Ke was stunned. The Luan Feng and Song Gu were also stunned, looking at each other. Did they hear wrong? Zhang Ruoxi actually wanted Shihua to kneel? Even if she was really a descendant of Tian Xing and had awakened her bloodline, in the end, she was still just a young girl. Was it really okay to be so arrogant? She was facing Shihua, a divine spirit. *1. The blood door suddenly buzzed, and a mysterious force suddenly spread out from it. Fan Ke, Luan Feng, and Song Gu all groaned as their expressions changed dramatically. Under the suppression of this force, the divine spirit sources in their bodies trembled violently, and fear from the depths of their souls filled their minds. Involuntarily, they almost knelt to the ground. These 3 managed to stop themselves at the last moment, and didn't make a fool of themselves on the spot. But Shihua, who was being used as a vanguard by the mysterious force, wasn't so lucky. The huge fist froze half a foot in front of Ruoxi, the burning flames almost burning her hair. But no matter how hard Shihua tried, he couldn't punch it away. On the contrary, while he was still stunned and panic-stricken, his huge body suddenly shrank, and he knelt down in front of Zhang Ruoxi. *C. Fan He and the others took in a cold breath, their faces aghast. They could feel that the force that suppressed Shihua to his knees wasn't Zhang Ruoxi's own power, but it came from the blood door, and this force was under Zhang Ruoxi's control. She could easily suppress Shihua, a divine spirit, to kneel on the ground. In other words, it would be easy for her to suppress the 3 of them. Chapter 2600. For a moment, Fan Ke and the other Saint Venerables broke out in cold sweat, especially Tsanggo, whose face was full of relief. He was almost tempted by Shihua's words and joined forces with him. If that was the case, then he would also be humiliated by kneeling on the ground. He really knelt down. 5 kilometers away, the numerous demon kings opened their eyes wide, and their jaws almost fell off from shock. On the contrary, the rock spirits that were restrained by them were extremely excited, and they were secretly delighted in their hearts. The embodiment sneered. If you don't want to die, let us go quickly. Otherwise, we will make you all die an ugly death. The monster kings and the 8 saint emissaries were shocked when they heard this. They looked at each other and hurriedly fled from the rock spirits, not daring to make things difficult for them. Even an existence like Shihua knelt on the ground at Zhang Ruoxi's words. How could these monster kings dare to be presumptuous? Their hearts were filled with apprehension. They did not know what fate awaited them. Only then did the rock spirit clan and the Dharmakaya body shake their bodies. They stood up together and gazed into the distance 10 miles away. Over there, Shihua, who was kneeling on the ground, seemed to be unable to believe what had just happened. The dark flames in his eyes flickered violently, and his heart was on the verge of collapse. He was a divine spirit, one of the 4 saint venerables of the ancient land. How could he kneel on the ground because of a girl's words? This humiliation was unbearable. Roar! Shihua roared hysterically, desperately trying to stand up, but a layer of faint red light had appeared on his body at some point. The red light enveloped him and turned into a power that restrained him. He couldn't move at all. Zheng. Ruoxi pointed the heavenly punishment sword in her hand. She pointed it at Shihua's chest. Along with her action, the wind and clouds in the sky suddenly changed. Even the huge woman's phantom behind her moved. The huge sheathed sword was suddenly pulled out by the woman's phantom and pointed at Shihua. Her beautiful face, magnified countless times, was cold. The power of heaven and earth. Fan Ke paled. Raising his head to look at the sky, the bitterness in his mouth overcame him. Just a moment ago, he still doubted how much heaven's punishment power Ruoxi had inherited, and even had some thoughts of resistance. But now, those thoughts had disappeared. The only thing he needed to consider was how to survive under Zhang Ruoxi's hands. The moment the sword struck out, it stirred up the power of heaven and earth. Without a doubt, this meant that the heavenly punishment bloodline had been completely awakened. As long as Zhang Ruoxi was given enough time, she would definitely become the second heaven's sentence, a nemesis that would strike fear into the hearts of all divine spirits. What are you doing? Shehua's face changed dramatically as he realized the huge gap between himself and Zhang Ruoxi. He could no longer remain calm. His flame-like eyes were filled with unease and fear. I am the Holy Spirit Stone Fire. Don't even think about killing me. Divine Spirit Stone Fire. The strong are merciless and bloodthirsty. Descendant of Tianxing, Zhang Ruoxi, hereby take this divine spirit source and strip it of its power. I hope all the divine spirits in the world will take this as a warning. Zhang Ruoxi said indifferently with an expressionless face. What? Shehua's eyes widened as he cried out involuntarily. You want to take this king's divine spirit source? Zhang Ruoxi did not answer. Instead, the heavenly punishment sword in her hand slowly stabbed forward. At the same time, the giant woman phantom behind her also stabbed the giant sword into Shehua's body. Shehua's body was extremely hard. Even if Fan Ku, Luan Feng, and the others, who were also divine spirits, they would not be able to hurt him. In terms of physical strength, he was even stronger than the Stone Spirit clan. But such a tough body was as fragile as tofu in front of the heavenly punishment sword. Zhang Ruoxi didn't seem to be using much strength, but the heavenly punishment sword in her hand pierced straight into Shehua's chest. No! Shehua cried out loudly as he stared at his chest with wide eyes. Finally panicking, he cried out anxiously, No, you can't take away this king's divine spirit source. This king is the Holy Spirit Stone Fire. This king refuses to accept this. Asterisk chi 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 chi. Asterisk the sound of the heavenly punishment sword piercing Shehua's body rang out, causing Fan Ku and the others to turn pale. Listening to this sound, they could feel the pain of the sword piercing their bodies. Luan Feng's tender body trembled violently as her smooth back was drenched in cold sweat. No, master, this Shehua was wrong. Please give this Shehua a chance to turn over a new leaf. This Shehua will never do evil again. Shehua saw that he could not resist and his source was beginning to weaken. So he finally could not help but beg for mercy. He was a divine spirit, and he had his own pride. If he had not been forced, he would not have compromised like this. Fan Ku and the others saw this and felt a pang in their hearts. However, Zhang Ruoxi remained unmoved. The heavenly punishment sword was almost completely inserted into Shehua's body, all the way to the hilt. If you knew this would happen, you wouldn't have done it in the first place. Ruoxi's beautiful eyes turned sharp as her hand shook violently. Asterisk Hong. Asterisk with a loud bang. A hole as thick as a person was blasted open in Shehua's chest. Shehua shook violently, and his originally powerful aura quickly withered. When the celestial punishment sword trembled, something that looked like a heart flew out. The heart seemed to be beating violently, producing thumping sounds. It also contained a power that made people tremble in fear. Shehua's source. Fan Ku's face turned pale as he staggered. He recognized at a glance that the thing in Ruoxi's hand was the divine spirit Shehua's source. Without this source, Shehua was destined to fall from the high platform of divine spirits and become an ordinary stone monster. The Luan Feng and Song Dog were also so shocked that they couldn't breathe and felt dizzy. Although they had long known from the memories passed down by their ancestors that the heavenly punishment sword could deprive divine spirits of their source, it was still just a memory. Witnessing it with their own eyes was still unbelievable. In this world, it was likely that no one besides the heavenly punishment sword sect could so easily take away a divine spirit's source. Shehua was finished. With his source taken away, even if he was lucky enough to survive, he would be nothing more than a cripple in the future. Looking over, Shehua was kneeling in place with a dull face. There was a huge hole in his heart, and the black flames that were burning around his body had been annihilated at some point. His aura was extremely weak, even weaker than that of the Emperor realm. Ruoxi swung her sword, and with a flash of light, Shehua's huge body fell to the ground and turned into a pile of rubble. There was no sign of life left in him. A pair of beautiful eyes looked coldly to the side, causing Fan Ku, the Luan Feng, and Song Dog's hearts to skip a beat, and they couldn't help but take a few steps back in horror. What they were most worried about now was that Zhang Ruoxi would attack them. Judging from Shehua's experience just now, if Zhang Ruoxi really wanted to kill them, None of them would be able to escape. The suppressive force coming from the blood door was too terrifying, and wasn't something they could resist. They didn't know if it was only targeted at divine spirits. But in any case, Yongkai didn't seem to be affected at all. Fortunately, Ruoshi only glanced at them coldly, before turning the heavenly punishment sword in her hand, and making a sheathing gesture. The heavenly punishment sword suddenly disappeared along with the phantom of the huge woman behind her. Fan Ku and the others breathed a sigh of relief. Although they didn't know what Zhang Ruoshi meant, this action undoubtedly showed that their lives were not in danger for the time being. Turning her head, Ruoshi looked in the direction of Yongkai. At this moment, Yongkai was in an extremely sorry state. It could be said that this was the most embarrassing moment of his life. His clothes were dried up with blood, his face was bruised and swollen, his eyes were almost narrowed into slits, his head was bleeding, and both his legs were broken. He didn't even have the strength to stand up, so he could only sit on the ground paralyzed. Looking at each other, Yongkai smiled bitterly. He was now a little confused. Was it a good thing or a bad thing for Ruoshi to become like this? Comparatively speaking, he preferred the previous docile and well-behaved Ruoshi, but the descendant of heavenly punishment standing in front of him now seemed cold-blooded and somewhat unreasonable. Her eyes and temperament were like that of a stranger. Standing in place in silence for a while, Ruoshi stretched out her hand again, and with a whoosh, a light flew out from the blood door. Fan Ku and the others paled again, and hurriedly looked over. Previously, Zhang Ruoshi had summoned the heavenly punishment sword with a wave of her hand. So what was it this time? To their surprise, what Ruoshi held in her hand wasn't a divine weapon, but a spirit fruit. This fruit was red and attractive, exuding a rich aroma as soon as it came out, causing one's appetite to soar. With a flicker, Ruoshi suddenly appeared in front of Yongkai, squatted down, and handed over the spirit fruit in her hand. Yongkai didn't take it and just stared at her blankly for a while before asking, "Are you Ruoshi?" Ruoshi nodded lightly and whispered, "Sir, it's me. Eat this first, and your injuries will heal quickly." "You?" Yongkai was surprised. "Sir, Ruoshi is still Ruoshi, I won't change." As she spoke, the coldness and indifference in Ruoshi's eyes gradually melted, replaced by a luster familiar to Yongkai. Ha 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 ha. Yongkai couldn't help laughing, his mood suddenly relaxing a lot. Reaching out to take the spirit fruit from Ruoshi's hand, Yongkai glanced at it, and his face changed slightly. 10,000-year-old phoenix blood fruit. The spirit fruit summoned by Ruoshi from the blood door turned out to be a 10,000-year-old phoenix blood fruit. This thing was a peerless treasure, because the fruit tree of this spirit fruit must be cultivated with the blood of a divine spirit phoenix. The Phoenix clan was a top existence among divine spirits. Not to mention killing them and extracting their blood, there were only a few people in the world who could make an enemy out of them. A phoenix blood fruit tree, on the other hand, required all the blood essence of a divine spirit phoenix to cultivate. It bloomed once every 10,000 years, and bore fruit once every 10,000 years. In terms of rarity, it was even rarer than the extraordinary treasure Lotus Yongkai encountered in the Four Seasons realm. But now, a phoenix blood fruit had appeared in front of him, and one that Ruoshi had casually summoned from the blood door. It was conceivable that there must be a phoenix blood fruit tree inside the blood door. It should have been planted by Tian Xing after he killed a member of the Phoenix clan. Chapter 2601. The phoenix blood fruit had no other use, but it had a miraculous effect on healing. As long as there was still a breath left, the phoenix blood fruit could bring the dead back to life. In this regard, it was similar to the immortal source liquid. Fan Ku and the others were also stunned. Although they were high and mighty holy spirits, when had they ever seen a peerless treasure like the phoenix blood fruit? They were all shocked. But soon, the expressions of the three saint seniors collapsed again, especially Luan Feng, whose pretty face was full of regret and uneasiness. Because judging from the current situation, this descendant of Tian Xing still valued Yang Kai very much even after his bloodline awakened. Otherwise, why would he summon a phoenix blood fruit from the blood door to heal him? This was really a waste of God's gift. But when Yang Kai was humiliated and bullied by Shi Hua, The three of them just watched coldly and didn't intervene. As a result, Yang Kai ended up in such a sorry state. Who knew if this descendant of Tian Xing would settle accounts with them later? Especially Wan Feng. Ruoxi slapped her cheek in front of her, begging her to help Yang Kai, but Wan Feng remained unmoved. She didn't even have the thought of stopping Zhang Ruoxi. As a result, Zhang Ruoxi slapped herself until one side of her face was swollen, and the blood at the corner of her mouth hadn't dried yet. If he had known this would happen, he would have given her some face and saved Yang Kai. She would have definitely owed him a favor. But she didn't want to offend Shi Hua, and just stood by. That was a favor from a descendant of Tian Xing. But now Shi Hua was dead, and even his source strength was taken away. Her previous concerns had completely become a joke, and she had to be on tenterhooks. For the first time in her life, Wan Feng finally understood the feeling of regret. Her mouth was full of bitterness. If she had another choice, so what if she offended Shi Hua? Sir, heal your wounds first. Seeing Yang Kai holding the phoenix blood fruit motionless, Ruoxi couldn't help but urge. She had followed Yang Kai for so many years, but when had she ever seen her sir in such a sorry state? While feeling distressed, she was also furious. Although the culprit, Shi Hua, was killed by her, the three people who stood by and watched were also abominable. Yang Kai nodded. He placed the phoenix blood fruit into his mouth and swallowed it. Although the fruit was rare, it was a gift from Ruoxi. Naturally, he wouldn't refuse. A sweet taste spread from the tip of his tongue. Immediately after, a warm current spread from his abdomen to his limbs and bones, filling up his flesh and bones, and quickly healing his injuries. Yang Kai was secretly shocked. Although he already knew that the phoenix blood fruit was a sacred fruit for healing injuries, he only truly understood the heaven-defying effects of this spiritual fruit after consuming it. It was rumored that as long as one still had a breath left in them, a single phoenix blood fruit was enough to make a person full of vigor. Now, it seemed that the rumors were true. Sir, what about the three of them? Ruoxi quietly transmitted her voice while turning her head to look at Fan Hua, and the other two who stood there motionless. Seeing her look over, the hearts of Fan Ku and the other two tightened, as they involuntarily swallowed their saliva. Those cold eyes really made them shiver. He wondered what this descendant of Tian Xing was planning. What do you want to do? Yang Kai asked. Kill them all. Ruoxi's eyes turned cold. Yang Kai smiled bitterly. He knew that this time her anger wasn't small. So, she had no intention of letting Fan Hua and the others go. But I will listen to Sir. Ruoxi added. If Sir wants them dead, then I will kill them. Yang Kai pondered for a moment. The power you used to kill Shi Hua wasn't your own, was it? Ruoxi nodded slightly. It was with the help of the power my ancestors left behind in the Blood Gate. With my own strength, I can't be their enemy. Then what are the drawbacks of using that power? Yang Kai asked again. A power that didn't belong to one's own was naturally difficult to use. In the end, Ruoxi was still a cultivator in the third-order Dao Source realm. It was impossible for her to suddenly obtain the power to kill a divine spirit without paying a price. Ruoxi was silent for a moment before answering truthfully. It's a bit of a burden on my body. Then forget it. Yang Kai smiled faintly. But sir, Ruoxi didn't seem to be willing to let it go. Yang Kai continued. Although they were indifferent before, it's human nature. They don't deserve to die. In the end, they didn't do anything to me. It's enough that Shi Hua is dead. Moreover, Wan Feng stopped you before. I owe her a favor. Ruoxi bit her lip and nodded slightly, agreeing with Yang Kai's statement. Since Sir said not to kill them, we won't kill them. But no matter what, we still need to teach them a lesson, otherwise they'll think we're easy to bully. Ruoxi snorted lightly as she slowly stood up in front of Yang Kai and directed a cold glare towards Fan Ku's trio. Yang Kai shook his head with a wry smile. Ruoxi's personality suddenly changed after awakening her bloodline power. She became so strong that he was quite uncomfortable with it. But this was a good thing. In this world, weakness and meekness weren't enough. For the first time in their lives, Fan Hua, Wan Feng, and Song Dog finally experienced what it meant to be tormented. Watching Ruoxi and Yang Kai whispering to each other, they didn't know what they were talking about, one more nervous than the other. Seeing Wuxia stand up at this moment, the trio's scalp went numb. They instinctively wanted to get away from this place. But Stonefire's death was a lesson to them. How could they dare to act rashly for fear of attracting a fatal disaster? Master, do you have any orders? Fan Hua braced himself and asked with a cupped fist. Luan Feng and Song Go also looked over with a stiff expression. Wuxia coldly snorted. The three of you listen well. Before, the three of you helped the tyrant and made things difficult for my sir. Even if I kill you, it won't be enough to appease the hatred in my heart. As soon as this statement came out, Fan Hua and the other two's expressions changed drastically. They almost couldn't help but run away. But with some misgivings, they forced themselves to stand in place. But Wuxia changed the topic. Sir is merciful and doesn't want to kill easily. Since the culprit has been executed, Sir doesn't want to pursue it any further. Fan Hua, Luan Feng, and Song Go were overjoyed. The three pairs of eyes looked at Yang Kai, as if looking at their savior with inexplicable gratitude. You may be exempted from death, but you can't escape punishment. This queen will give you a small punishment. I hope you will behave yourselves in the future. If you dare to rely on the power of the Holy Spirit to commit crimes in the future, Shihua's fate will be a lesson to you. As soon as her words fell, Wuxia suddenly slapped the place where the three were standing. The blood door buzzed and two crimson lights suddenly shot out from it. Without any deviation, they directly hit Fan Hua and Song Go. The two holy masters didn't even have the strength to fight back, and were directly slapped away, vomiting blood in midair. Luan Feng froze in place, her beautiful eyes trembling slightly. It took a while for her to react that she wasn't attacked. But she was also a smart person. She naturally understood why Fan Hua and Song Go were injured, but she was fine. It was clearly because she had saved this descendant of Tianxing. For a moment she rejoiced. On the other side, Fan Hua and Song Go fell to the ground in a sorry state. But they didn't dare to complain. Instead, they both breathed a sigh of relief, stood up, and cupped their fists together. Thank you, Master, for your mercy. They all knew that since Wuxia had taken action, the matter was over. They wouldn't have to worry about their lives. Wuxia snorted. An abnormal blush appeared under her pretty face. It should be the burden of borrowing the power of the blood door again. Standing in place, Wuxia glanced into the distance and suddenly stretched out her hand. Uncle Stone, little Xiao, come here. The Uncle Stone she spoke of was undoubtedly the embodiment. They had been together in the sealed world bead for many years, so Wuxia and the embodiment were very familiar with each other. Hearing this, the embodiment immediately rushed over from 10 miles away with little Xiao. In a short while, the embodiment and little Xiao stood in front of Wuxia. Wuxia turned her head and glanced at Fan Hua, but didn't say anything. Fan Hua immediately understood, and quickly lifted the seal on the embodiment and little Xiao, allowing them to regain their freedom. Uncle Stone, this is for you. While speaking, Wuxia flicked the Stonefire origin that had been in the palm of her hand to the embodiment. The heart-like existence rotated and floated in front of the embodiment's chest. For me, the embodiment's eyes lit up. He had seen Wuxia kill the Stonefire origin, so he naturally knew what this thing was. This was the Stonefire origin. If the right conditions were to refine it and inherit the power of the origin, then it would be another Stonefire origin. Wuxia nodded and pulled out the heavenly punishment sword again. Gently pointing it at the embodiment, she said, the Stone Spirit clan and the Stonefire origin have some relationship. Their body structure and the power of inheritance are very similar. So the Stone Spirit clan can inherit the power of the Stonefire origin. When the heavenly punishment sword touched the embodiment's body, the tip of the sword shone brightly. Immediately, a very strange pattern brand appeared on the embodiment's chest. There seemed to be an inexplicable suction force coming from the pattern, sucking in the Stonefire origin suspended in midair, and disappearing in the blink of an eye. The embodiment groaned, and a dark flame suddenly ignited on the surface of his body. His expression suddenly became very painful. Wuxia abandoned the heavenly punishment sword and quickly formed a series of seals with both hands. Then one mysterious seal after another struck the embodiment's body. Every time a seal was struck, the black flames were suppressed by a lot. It wasn't until a cup of tea's worth of time later that the burning flames disappeared completely. At the same time, the embodiment also suddenly quieted down and sat cross-legged on the spot, like an old monk in meditation. This stone spirit soared to the sky in one fell swoop. Fan Hua, who was watching from not far away, suddenly said. Luan Feng smiled bitterly and said, I have long heard that the heavenly punishment sword can not only deprive the Holy Spirit of its origin, but also create a new Holy Spirit. Seeing it today, I know that the rumors are true. Song Dog also couldn't help but say with envy, if this stone spirit were to inherit the Stonefire origin by himself, I'm afraid there would only be a 10% chance of success. But with the help of the heavenly punishment sword's descendants, there will be no hidden dangers. In time, after he refines the Stonefire origin, there will be another Holy Spirit in this world. Chapter 2602. After sealing the Stonefire essence into the embodiment, Ruashi's face suddenly became a little pale. Although her actions just now seemed casual, it had consumed a lot of her essence, chi and spirit. Looking around, she stretched out her hand again, and the 10,000 beast seal that had been taken away by Sherhua flew over and landed in her palm. Sir, this gift you gave me, I'll keep it. Ruashi clenched the 10,000 beast seal tightly, her eyes full of reluctance. Where are you going? Yang Kai was surprised and understood the meaning behind her words. Ruashi pursed her red lips. My bloodline power has awakened. I need to inherit my ancestors' power. Yang Kai immediately looked towards the blood door. Ruashi smiled and the deliberately cold expression on her face suddenly melted as she softly said, Sir, when Ruashi comes out, I will be able to help you and won't be a burden to you in the future. What happened today will never happen again. Yang Kai opened his mouth and sighed. It's my fault for not being able to protect you. Ruashi shook her head. It's not Sir's fault. Ruashi was too presumptuous. Yang Kai no longer said anything and just looked at her. Do you have to go? Zhang Ruashi nodded with a firm expression. Yang Kai nodded. Then go. Since it's your ancestors' power, there's no reason to ignore it. But you must be careful. Ruashi knows. Ruashi's eyes became slightly wet as she looked at Xiao Xiao again. Sir, I will take Xiao Xiao in and let him inherit Taiyu's power. You can talk to the Stone Spirit clan about this matter later. Okay. Yang Kai nodded. The Stone Spirit clan had mobilized all their forces to send Xiao Xiao into the blood door to inherit Taiyu's power. Unfortunately, the development of the situation was very different from their expectations. But now that Zhang Ruashi was taking Xiao Xiao in, there was naturally no problem. Xiao Xiao, after entering the blood door, listen to Ruashi's orders and don't cause any trouble for her. Yang Kai reminded Xiao Xiao again. Xiao Xiao nodded incessantly and whimpered incessantly, looking very obedient. Don't worry, sir. Since Uncle Stonehead can inherit the Stonefire origin, then Xiao Xiao shouldn't have any problems inheriting the mountain origin. Ruashi comforted. Then, she turned her head to look at Fan Hua and the others. The tender look on her face was replaced by coldness. She said coldly, If anything happens to my master in the ancient lands, the day I walk out of the blood door will be the day you three die. These words were not polite at all. Fan Ku and the other two had already rushed over to fight for their lives. But when Zhang Ruashi said so, the three of them couldn't do anything about it. Fan Ku cupped his fists in fear and said, Master, don't worry. As long as I, Fan Ku, am around, I will not let anything happen to this mister. The Luan Feng and the Tsang dog also trembled in fear. The three of them secretly thought, looking at this situation, he wanted to live a more comfortable life in the future. I still need to have a good relationship with Yang Kai. As long as I have a good relationship with Yang Kai, why would I be afraid of this descendant of Tianxing finding trouble with me? For a moment, Yang Kai became a shining treasure in the eyes of the three. Everyone wanted to take a bite out of him. Sir, Ruashi turned her head again, her beautiful eyes full of reluctance. She pursed her red lips and said, Ruashi will be leaving now. Yang Kai sat on the ground, feeling somewhat sad, but he still forced a smile and said, It's not a life and death parting. There will be a day when we meet again. I will wait for you to come out of the blood door. Ruashi lowered her head, and her cheeks suddenly flushed red. She said nervously, "Before I leave, can Sir fulfill a request of mine?" When he said this, he didn't have any confidence in himself. While he spoke, he also secretly glanced at Kai Yang, as if he had a guilty conscience. Yang Kai smiled and said, "Say it. Not to mention one request. Even if it's 10 or 100, as long as I can do it, I will do it." Then, "Sir, please close your eyes." Ruashi gritted her teeth and mustered up her courage. After she finished speaking, she felt her cheeks burning hot. Fan Hua and the other two looked at the scene in a daze, all of them showing a meaningful expression. They suddenly realized that they had underestimated the relationship between this descendant of Tianxing and Yang Kai. They originally thought the two were just friends, but now it seems this descendant of Tianxing was in love. If this is the case, then in the future it won't be as simple as having a good relationship with Yang Kai. They will have to follow his orders. This really does match Yang Kai's words from before. 30 years to the east, 30 years to the west. Who knows when there will be a place that needs his help? At that time, although Yang Kai was referring to the Stone Spirit clan, Fan Hua didn't care at all. But now it seems that these words were true. Yang Kai was also stunned when he heard this. He wasn't a fledgling boy. How could he not see the clues in Ruashi's expression and tone? He sighed slightly in his heart. Since coming to the star boundary, he had never dared to attract bees and butterflies. After all, far away in his homeland, Su Yan, Xianing Chang, Shanqing Luo, and Shuiyu were all waiting for him. After wandering the star boundary for so many years, his life was also extremely self-disciplined. He had never acted too intimately with any woman. But he was also a person, a man. After thinking for a while, Yang Kai closed his eyes. Ruashi bit her red lips tightly, the heart in her chest thumping fiercely. The violent heartbeat was like a war drum, and her hot cheeks burned like fire. Step by step, she came in front of Yang Kai, then crouched down and stretched out her trembling hands to hold Yang Kai's cheeks. Closing her eyes, her long eyelashes trembled nervously as she slowly pressed her lips against his. Soon a warm feeling came from his forehead, and an intoxicating fragrance lingered at the tip of his nose. Her teasing hair caressed Yang Kai's cheeks, bringing a tingling sensation. After what seemed like a moment, but also like 1,000 years, Ruashi jumped up like a frightened rabbit. Drunk and hazy, her delicate ears were dark red as she panicked. "Say, Sir, Ruashi really has to go. Please take care of yourself." After saying that, she turned around and rushed towards the blood door, as if she didn't dare to stay here for a moment longer. As a result, her body inexplicably went soft, and she almost tripped over a stone. Puffed! Song Dog couldn't help but laugh. Ruashi immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation, and glared at Song Dog. The smile on Song Dog's face instantly stiffened, and his forehead was dripping with sweat. "Take good care of my sir, or you're dead." Ruashi dropped this sentence, and rushed into the blood door in a flash and disappeared. Xiao Xiao whimpered in front of Yang Kai for a while, as if to say goodbye, then turned around and waved at the Stone Spirit clan 10 miles away, before rushing into the blood door. Asterisk crash, asterisk a strange sound rang out, and the blood gate forbidden grounds that had stood in the savage wildland for countless years suddenly disappeared, as if it had never appeared in the first place. As soon as the blood door disappeared, the inexplicable force that suppressed the creatures in the ancient wilderness also disappeared. Fan Hua and the others breathed a sigh of relief, and couldn't help but feel a sense of relief from the bottom of their hearts. They secretly thought that this great aunt was finally gone. If she didn't leave, the three of them would have to struggle to breathe. Looking at each other, their figures flashed and appeared in front of Yang Kai in a flash. They cupped their fists and said, "Congratulations, Mr. Yang." At this moment, the three of them didn't dare to be arrogant in front of Yang Kai. They all lowered their posture, lest their image offend Yang Kai, and cause him to complain in front of the descendants of Tianxing in the future. Yang Kai was still reminiscing about the warm kiss just now. He touched his forehead and looked up at them when he heard their words. What's there to congratulate? What else could there be to congratulate? Anyone who climbed a big tree like the descendants of Tianxing would be able to walk unhindered in the star boundary in the future. Even the great emperors would have to give them some face. Is it worth congratulating me for eating soft rice? Yang Kai snorted sarcastically as his eyes swept across the faces of the three. Or do the three of you think this young master is like a gigolo? Fan Ku and the others were suddenly at a loss for words. They didn't know what Yang Kai was thinking, but they could only stand in place awkwardly. This young master still has something to do, please help yourself. Yang Kai waved his hand, but suddenly thought of something and said, tell the Stone Spirit clan to stay behind. Yes. Fan Ku and the others quickly cupped their fists and left respectfully. After they left, Kai Yang raised his head and looked up at the sky. Up in the sky, Ice Heart Valley's third sister stood there, frowning and pouting, a look of displeasure on her face as she stared in the direction of the blood door. She had come here with Ruashi, but now that Ruashi had left, she was suddenly left alone. In her confusion, she couldn't understand the situation. Third sister, Yang Kai shouted. Third sister immediately looked at him, and after seeing Yang Kai's face, she suddenly became happy and said with a cheeky grin, come and catch me, come and catch me. Saying so, she seemed to want to escape and continue playing hide-and-seek with Yang Kai. Third sister, don't make trouble. Do you still want to see Senior Bing Yin, and Ruo Yin, Sun Yinxiu, and Zhang Suning? After experiencing the incident with Ruashi, Yang Kai was no longer in the mood to play with third sister, and directly reported the names of the few people closest to her. Sure enough, third sister was shocked and her body froze in mid-air. Slowly turning her head back, her beautiful eyes trembled violently, showing the chaos in her soul. Yang Kai was really afraid that something would happen to her, but unexpectedly, after only a moment, a trace of clarity bloomed in her eyes. Gritting her teeth, she asked in a low voice, do you know my honored master? Yang Kai raised his brow and asked in surprise, are you okay? When she said that sentence, her demeanor was no different from ordinary people. Obviously, she had regained her consciousness. Do you know my honored master? Third sister asked eagerly. Yes, Yang Kai nodded. Third sister suddenly became excited and looked nervously at Yang Kai. Is she still alive? Yang Kai said solemnly, Senior Bing Yin has returned to Ice Heart Valley. Your senior sister and junior sister are very concerned about your whereabouts, but unfortunately, they haven't been able to find you. Chapter 2603. Honored Master is still alive. Third sister's figure staggered as she revealed a relieved smile. Then she burst into laughter. Honored Master, where are you? As she spoke, third sister actually started crying again, looking pitiful as if she had lost her way and couldn't find her way home. Yang Kai's face immediately darkened as he realized that third sister's state was somewhat unstable. Schwa. Third sister's figure flashed and suddenly appeared behind Yang Kai. Although there were still traces of tears on her face, she smiled and said, Honored Master, so you are here. Disciple will comb your hair for you. As she spoke, she actually grabbed Yang Kai's messy hair and carefully combed it. What's going on? Yang Kai used his divine sense to investigate his third sister, and found that although her mind was still extremely chaotic at the moment, her expression had calmed down, and she was carefully combing his hair, with a serious expression. Did she mistake me for Senior Bing Yin? But how is my body similar to Bing Yin's? Even my gender is different. It's impossible for a normal person to mistake me, right? It seems that third sister's mind is really in chaos. With a thought, Yang Kai's face suddenly became serious and he quickly said, Traitorous disciple, do you know your mistake? As soon as he said this, third sister, who was standing behind him, shivered and her face filled with fear. Then, she hurriedly came in front of Yang Kai and knelt on the ground. Lowering her head, she said in a trembling voice, Please enlighten me, honored master. Did she really think I was Senior Bing Yin? Although he was secretly happy, Yang Kai maintained a dignified expression on his face. He reprimanded, Master has safely returned to Ice Heart Valley. Why have you been outside all this time? Could it be that the outside world has disturbed your Tao heart and made you forget to return? Third sister said in a trembling voice, Disciple doesn't dare. Disciple was outside. Disciple was outside. After a long time, she didn't finish her sentence. It was as if she had forgotten what she was doing outside all this time. A trace of confusion gradually appeared on her dirty face. Yang Kai cursed inwardly. If he let her continue to think about it, if things didn't go well, things would become troublesome again. So he immediately shouted, "Since you don't dare, then follow Master back to Ice Heart Valley and serve me from now on. You are not allowed to leave without orders." The confusion on Old Third's face disappeared in an instant, and he respectfully replied, "Yes, this disciple obeys." Yang Kai gently nodded and said, "Very good, get up." "Thank you, Master." "Stand aside. I need to circulate my qi to heal my injuries. During this period, no one is allowed to come near me." Yang Kai tried to give another order. The third sister obediently followed the order and stood to the side. Her beautiful eyes were full of vigilance as she looked left and right, as if she was protecting Yang Kai. "Look at her." Yang Kai couldn't help but sigh. He didn't mean to take advantage of third brother. However, Old Third, this fellow, appeared and disappeared unpredictably. If he really let her escape again, he might not be able to find her again. Using this method to stabilize her was a good thing. After quietly paying attention to his third sister for a while, Yang Kai found that she didn't show any signs of going crazy. Only then did he circulate his secret art to dissolve the phoenix blood fruit's medicinal efficacies in his body. Yang Kai's injuries this time were not light. Not only did he suffer some physical pain, but he also had more than a dozen broken bones, especially his legs, which had been directly broken by Shihua's attack. His 5 viscera and 6 organs were also filled with blood, and his insides were a mess. Fortunately, his physique was extremely strong, and the restorative ability of his golden blood was also extremely strong. Otherwise, with such injuries, even if an ordinary person didn't die, they would be gasping for breath. Under the circulation of his emperor qi, the phoenix blood fruit's medicinal efficacies gradually dissolved in his body. His broken bones slowly healed, and his bruised and swollen face was restored to normal. The phoenix blood fruit was worthy of its reputation as a healing panacea. Before the spirit fruit's medicinal efficacies were completely consumed, Yang Kai already felt that he was fine. However, it would take some time for his reconnected bones to fully recover. Half an hour later, Yang Kai opened his eyes and glanced over at his third sister, only to find that she was still standing straight in front of him, protecting him. 10 miles away, with the 3 Saint Venerables as their leader, Mini Monster King, Saint Envoys, and even the Rock Spirit clan were silently watching. Each of them had different expressions and complicated feelings. This was especially true for Xia Wuwei. Previously, when he was forced to become Yang Kai's sole slave, he was very unhappy. He felt that Yang Kai was too despicable and shameless. If he hadn't hit him when he was down, he wouldn't have been willing to hand over his soul seal. However, Xia Wuwei didn't dare to think that way now. Didn't they see how respectful the 3 Saint Venerables were in front of him? When he was recuperating, the 3 Saint Venerables didn't dare to disturb him at all. They even passed down a decree for all Monster King and Saint Envoys to remember Yang Kai's appearance. In the future, when they saw him, they would treat him as if they were Saint Venerables. Even the Saint Venerables didn't dare to be arrogant in front of him. A Monster King like him was nothing. Xia Wuwei was convinced. He was truly convinced. At the same time, he was extremely annoyed. If he had known that the little girl beside Yang Kai was a descendant of Tianxing, he would have built a good relationship with her. Perhaps when the descendant of Tianxing entered the blood door, she would have been kind enough to bring him into the blood door and let him inherit the power of the Holy Spirit. Now that the descendant of Tianxing had entered the blood door and brought in a rock spirit to inherit Taiyu's power, he could only be jealous. When he thought of this, Xia Wuwei was so annoyed that his heart ached. Third brother, call the 3 Saint Venerables and Elder Rock Spirit over. Yang Kai suddenly ordered. Third brother bowed and walked 10 kilometers away. Yang Kai, on the other hand, came to the mountains and rivers bell on the ground alone, and looked around, as if he was trying to see if there was anything special about it. He was forced to remove the mountains and rivers bell's soul brand, so this ancient exotic treasure was once again without an owner. Even now, no one was interested in it. 10 kilometers away, third sister flew over. At a glance, her clothes were tattered, and her pretty face was dirty. It was almost impossible to see her original appearance. Many pairs of eyes looked at her curiously, not knowing who she was. Xia Wuwei knew that Yang Kai had been looking for third sister, and had seen her image before. But it was not convenient for him to point it out at this moment. Honored Master has ordered for the three of you and Elder Rock Spirit to have a chat. Third sister looked at Fan Ku and the others and said in a light tone, Honored Master. Fan Ku and the others were shocked when they heard this, not knowing what was going on. They knew Yang Kai's cultivation very well. He was only a first-order Emperor Realm Master. But this dirty woman in front of them was a second-order Emperor Realm Master. Why did she call Yang Kai Honored Master? But from the tone and demeanor of this woman, it didn't seem like she was joking. Fan Ku was full of doubts, but she couldn't ask, so she could only smile and nod. Many thanks, young lady. After saying that, he was about to walk over. But soon he seemed to have thought of something. He turned to look at Elder Shiling, and extended his hand. Elder Shiling, after you. Elder Rock Spirit chuckled, understanding what Fan Ku was afraid of. He immediately made a gesture of invitation, and walked forward side by side with the three Saint Masters. A short while later, the four arrived at the original battlefield under Third Sister's lead. Honored Master, the third brother called out, indicating that Yang Kai had brought him here, and then respectfully stood aside. Yang Kai nodded and stepped forward to greet them. Sir Yang, Fan Ku, Luan Feng, and Song Go all took the initiative to greet him with cupped fists and forced smiles on their faces. But Yang Kai didn't even look at them, and walked straight to Elder Rock Spirit, smiling and bowing. Elder. Fan Ku and the others were quite embarrassed, but they couldn't say anything, and could only step aside. Mr. Yang. Elder Rock Spirit didn't dare to be arrogant at this moment. Just based on the close relationship between Yang Kai and the descendants of Tian Xing, no one in the entire ancient land dared to be presumptuous in front of Yang Kai. Yang Kai reached out and pressed down Elder Rock Spirit's clenched fists and sighed. Elder Rock Spirit has seen it. Although there were some twists and turns in today's process, it was fortunate that I didn't disappoint you. Little Xiao has now entered the Blood Gate, and with Ruashi's help, he will inherit Tai Yu's power in time. Although Elder Rock Spirit had already learned the following things from Fan Ku and the others, but hearing Yang Kai say it himself at this moment still made him very excited. His body trembled slightly. Mr. Yang's kindness, my Rock Spirit clan will forever remember it. Elder Rock is too polite. Yang Kai smiled slightly. Although Little Xiao is a member of the Rock Spirit clan, he was also raised by me. I also wish him well. Elder Rock Spirit clan and I are family, so don't be so polite. Elder Rock Spirit's eyes lit up. It is Ninth Stone's fortune to be under Mr. Yang's tutelage. It is also the fortune of my Rock Spirit clan. Yang Kai reassured. Elder Rock Spirit clan, please rest assured. In the future, your Rock Spirit clan will not be disturbed in the ancient lands. No one will force you to do things you don't want to do. At this point, Yang Kai glanced sideways at Fan Ku and the others and snorted. Master, what do you think? Fan Ku quickly chimed in. Mr. Yang is right. The Rock Spirit clan will never be disturbed in the future. After today, we will warn our subordinates that with the Rock Spirit clan's current residence as the center, the Rock Spirit clan will forever belong to the Rock Spirit clan. Anyone who dares to rashly invade will be killed without mercy. Luan Feng and Song Dog also nodded, apparently having no objection to this decision. Yang Kai snorted, but he didn't express his opinion. He looked at Elder Rock Spirit clan and said, Elder, are you satisfied with this? If not, we can discuss it again. The three Saint Masters are easygoing people. Just tell them if you have any requests. Fan Ku quickly said, Yes, if Elder Rock Spirit clan has any other request, just say it. If the three of us can satisfy it, we will not refuse. Elder Rock Spirit clan chuckled. It's enough, our Rock Spirit clan has very few members. A 1,000,000-mile radius is enough for us to move around. He had a relieved expression on his face, obviously very satisfied with this result. Of course, he also knew that Fan Ku was being so generous, because he was giving face to Yang Kai. Otherwise, let alone a 1 million-mile radius, even 10,000 miles would be difficult. Elder Rock Spirit Clan sighed in his heart. Before coming here today, he also had the intention to either succeed or die trying. Who would have thought that the result would be so joyous? Not to mention that the Rock Spirit Clan suddenly had a powerful backer. Even Shirjio was going to become the Holy Spirit Taiyu. If the Rock Spirit Clan could live a comfortable life, then the Wood Spirit Clan would also live a comfortable life, avoiding all the troubles in the future. This was the life that Elder Rock Spirit Clan had yearned for countless years, but failed to obtain. But now Yang Kai solved it with just a few words. Chapter 2604. Fan Hua smiled and said, "This king's palace is not far from Elder's residence. In the future, Elder will have to visit me more often." The Elder said politely, "Since Master is interested, then this old man may have to disturb you in the future. I hope Holy Master won't mind." Yang Kai didn't have to be polite to Fan Hua, but the Elder still had some concerns. Before Xiao Xiao became Taiyu, the Rock Spirit Clan's strength was weaker than the other party. Yang Kai couldn't always stay in the ancient lands to protect them. Not to mention how close his relationship with Fan Hua was. At the very least, it was a good thing for the Rock Spirit Clan. Fan Hua laughed and said, "Elder is too serious. If Elder is free in the future, please come to this king's palace." Wanfeng also smiled and said, "This queen also welcomes Elder very much." Song Dog glanced at them and snorted, "You speak as if this king is unapproachable." Turning his head, he smiled at the Elder and said, "Elder, although my temporary residence is a little far from the Stone Spirit Clan's residence, I've long heard that the Wood Spirit Clan's wine and delicacies are incomparably delicious. If one day I visit your residence as a guest, I hope that Elder won't kick me out." "I wouldn't dare. If Holy Master wants to come, my clan will naturally welcome you." The Elder smiled bitterly. When did he become so popular? The three Holy Masters of the ancient lands wanted to get close to him one after another. All of this was undoubtedly because of Yang Kai. He was not a hypocrite and continued to exchange pleasantries with these three Saint Masters here. So he quickly turned to Yang Kai and said, "Sir Yang, since this matter has been settled, this old master will take his clansmen back. I wonder if Mr. Yang..." Yang Kai smiled faintly and said, "I won't follow Elder." He said, "I won't go with you. This time, I came to the ancient lands to find Xiao Xiao. Now that Xiao Xiao has gone to the Blood Gate, my business is done. I will leave the ancient lands soon." Hearing this, a look of regret appeared on the Elder's face. However, he still said, "Then I wish Mr. Yang a safe journey. If you come to the ancient lands again, please come to my Rock Spirit Clan's territory. This old man will definitely welcome you. Elder, take care." Yang Kai cupped his fists and said. The Elder returned the greeting and bid farewell to Fan Ku and the others. Then he turned around and left. Soon, the Rock Spirit Clan disappeared from everyone's sight along with the Elder. Fan Ku and the others stood behind Yang Kai, exchanging glances with each other, their hearts filled with unease. In the end, Fan Wu coughed lightly and asked tentatively, "Mr. Yang, what do you plan to do next?" Yang Kai tilted his head and looked at him. He chuckled and said, "What? Does Master Fan Ku want me to leave this ancient land as soon as possible?" Fan Hua discolored, hissing in fright. No. Mr. Yang had arrived at the ancient lands. This is the fortune of the ancient lands. How could Fan Hua dare to think that way? You really don't dare? Just say what you think. I'm just a trivial first-order Emperor Realm Master, and I can't do anything to you. Yang Kai sneered sarcastically. You can't do anything to me, but Tian Xing's descendant can. Fan Hua cursed in his heart, but he still forced a smile and said, Mr. Yang, you worry too much. From today onwards, Mr. will be an honored guest of my ancient lands. If you want to stay here, we welcome you with open arms. Yang Kai reached out and patted Fan Hua's shoulder. Then he laughed and said, I didn't expect Master Fan Hua to be so hospitable. In that case, this young master will give you some face. It's settled then. This young master will stay in the ancient lands for a while. Fan Hua's face darkened. He wanted to slap himself a few times. The Luanfeng and Song Dog also looked at him with resentment. Now that he was forced to remove the soul brand, Yang Kai didn't know if he could get it to recognize him again. Even if he could, he didn't know how long it would take. If he had to spend another year, then Kai Yang would be very depressed. His divine sense and Emperor Qi flowed into the mountains and rivers Bell with ease, much to Yang Kai's joy. Knowing this ancient exotic treasure was not rejecting him, he immediately focused his mind and branded his soul brand into the bell. Schwa. The quaint mountains and rivers bell flashed, and Yang Kai raised his brows slightly before reaching out to pick it up and play with it. This? Fan Hua was shocked. Fan Hua had also touched the mountains and rivers bell before. But even with his strength, he couldn't forcibly pick it up, and could only let it fall to the ground. Now that Yang Kai was able to pick it up, it undoubtedly meant he had subdued it. So fast! Song Dog also exclaimed in amazement. Luanfeng's beautiful eyes flashed with a strange light as she looked Yang Kai up and down, as if she wanted to see a flower in him. The three of them had tried many times before, but they couldn't pour their strength into the mountains and rivers bell at all. But when it came to Yang Kai, it seemed to be as simple as breathing. My luck is good. Yang Kai grinned. This treasure seems to be willing to recognize me as its master. Saying so, Yang Kai directly took the mountains and rivers bell back into his body, and turned his head to look at the embodiment sitting cross-legged on the ground. Ever since Ruah she sealed the stone fire origin into the embodiment, it seemed to have fallen into a strange slumber. Under Yang Kai's perception, the wisp of soul clone in the embodiment's body also quieted down. However, although it was asleep, there was no danger. As long as the embodiment could refine the stone fire origin, it would awaken as the new divine spirit stone fire. Mr. Yang, this stone spirit, how should we deal with it? Do you need me to ask the Monster King to protect it? Luanfeng saw the concern in Yang Kai's eyes and quickly asked. If one were to ask who was the biggest winner today, it would undoubtedly be the Stone Spirit clan. Among the Stone Spirit clan, one of them was brought into the blood door by the Tianxing descendant to inherit the power of the divine spirit Taiyu, while the other received the stone fire origin. In one clan, 2 divine spirits would be born at once. The entire Stone Spirit clan only had a few members. Based on this point alone, the Stone Spirit clan couldn't be underestimated in the future. Hearing Luanfeng's question, Yang Kai shook his head and said, "No need. No need." The Luanfeng stared blankly for a moment. She couldn't help but worry. Although the Archfiend Kings and Divine Emissaries knew about today's matter, they definitely wouldn't come to disturb the rock spirit that was about to become a holy spirit. However, while the King of Hell was easy to serve, the little demons were hard to deal with. Perhaps some ignorant little demons would come here and accidentally disturb the rock spirit. Who could bear the responsibility? Luanfeng had some misgivings, and was about to open her mouth to persuade him again, when she saw Yang Kai suddenly form a series of mysterious hand seals, his body swaying wildly, as if he was suffering from an epileptic fit, causing anyone who saw him to be worried that he would break his bones. At the same time, he was also muttering some kind of incantation. He was acting very mysterious. The 3 Saint Venerables were stunned. They didn't know what Yang Kai was doing. Under the gaze of several pairs of eyes, Yang Kai suddenly reached out and patted the embodiment. Schwa. The embodiment disappeared mysteriously. The 3 Saint Venerables were shocked. Fan Wu exclaimed in a low voice, "What's going on? Where did he go?" The Luanfeng and Song Hound were also puzzled. They slowly shook their heads. The 3 Saint Venerables were top-notch experts. But now, something unimaginable had happened in front of them. How could they not be shocked? What's the fuss about? Yang Kai clapped his hands and flicked the non-existent dust off his clothes. He glanced at the 3 Saint Venerables and said, "This young master just used the great universal shift to send him to a safe place." Great art of universe shifting. Fanko was shocked. But soon, he relaxed because Yang Kai had displayed extraordinary space attribute divine abilities before. In his opinion, this universe shifting art, which he had never heard of before, was undoubtedly a kind of space attribute divine ability. Since Yang Kai could teleport himself, He should be able to teleport others as well. What he did not know, however, was that Yang Kai was just putting on an act while taking his embodiment into the sealed world bead. Otherwise, with their cultivation, they would have been able to detect the traces of teleportation and not be able to track him down so easily. Chapter 2605. Sir Yang's divine technique is truly unfathomable. It is truly an eye-opener. Fan Hua praised sincerely. He wasn't trying to flatter Yang Kai, but rather, it was truly an eye-opener. It was hard not to admire Yang Kai for making such a large stone spirit disappear out of thin air. Fan Hua knew that he didn't have such an ability. With just this one move, the three Saint Venerables were amazed by Yang Kai. On second thought, Yang Kai had such an amazing cultivation at such a young age, and was proficient in the Tao of space. It wasn't impossible for him to become one of the great emperors in the future. Even if he couldn't become one of the great emperors, he would have no problem reaching the third-order emperor realm. What kind of concept was a third-order emperor realm master proficient in the Tao of space? Even if his cultivation wasn't as good as the great emperors, he would still be a top master in the emperor realm. Moreover, he had the mountains and rivers bell, and the descendant of Tian Xing was in love with him. After re-examining Yang Kai, the three Saint Venerables discovered that this young man had an unimaginable potential hidden in him. Fan Hua cupped his fists and said, "Sir Yang, since this matter is over, why don't you take a rest in my humble abode?" After realizing Yang Kai's potential, Fan Hua wasn't so opposed to Yang Kai staying in the ancient lands. Instead, he was very enthusiastic. Song Go and Luan Feng were obviously aware of this as well. Before Fan Hua finished speaking, Song Go said, "My palace also welcomes Sir Yang. If Sir Yang doesn't mind." Luan Feng directly interrupted him. "This mistress also wants to invite Sir Yang to my palace, but I'm afraid Sir Yang won't agree." Song Go didn't finish his sentence, as he felt extremely uncomfortable in his heart. He couldn't help but glare at Luan Feng. His face was gloomy. Yang Kai glanced at the three with a smile. His heart was as clear as a mirror. How could he not know what they were planning? He sneered in his heart, wondering if they would still be so enthusiastic after knowing his true intentions. After pondering for a moment, he said, "Three masters' hospitality is great. Then it would be impolite for this young master to refuse. I wonder which of the three masters' palaces is closer to this place?" Yang Kai didn't have much of a friendship with these three saints. The only one he found pleasing to the eye was Luan Feng. After all, Luan Feng was a woman, and had some innate advantages. Moreover, because of Ruashi's matter, Yang Kai's impression of her was slightly better than the other two. However, it didn't matter where he went at this time. The main event was after he arrived. The Luan Feng's eyes lit up and she said, "This place is the closest to my palace." Song Dog was instantly displeased. He said, "It's only 100,000 miles closer to my palace. You call that close?" Yang Kai waved his hand and said, "Since it's the closest to the Phoenix Madam's palace, then this young master will stay there." Cough cough. "My injuries haven't healed yet, so I really shouldn't go on a long journey." As he spoke, he coughed violently and spat out a mouthful of golden blood. The three of them were shocked. Luan Feng cried out, "Mr. Yang, what's wrong with you?" Standing to the side, third brother's beautiful face also turned pale. He quickly came forward to support Yang Kai and said with concern, "Master." Yang Kai clutched his chest and said with difficulty, "Shihua was too ruthless. This young master's injuries are quite serious. I'm afraid I won't be able to recover in a short time." Fan Ku and the others were stunned. "Didn't the descendant of Tian Xing give you a 10,000-year-old phoenix blood fruit? With that kind of sacred healing medicine, what kind of injuries can't be healed? Moreover, he was clearly fine just a moment ago, so why did he spit out blood in the blink of an eye?" They didn't know what Yang Kai was doing. Each of them had a strange expression. Cough cough. Yang Kai's face was pale as he gasped for breath. "I heard that there are many spirit grasses and miraculous medicines in the ancient lands. If I can obtain some and consume them, they will definitely be effective in healing this young master's injuries. Ha! It's a pity that this young master is currently injured and doesn't have the strength to search for them." Fan Ku's face darkened as he suddenly understood what Yang Kai was trying to do. The corners of his mouth twitched as he said, "Mr. Yang, rest assured. This king will have his monster king subordinates search for those spirit grasses and miraculous medicines. When the time comes, this king will personally deliver them to Mr. Yang. I hope Mr. Yang can persist for a while." After saying so, he quietly glared at Song Dog and secretly transmitted a message to him. Song Dog shivered and hurriedly said, "This king will not shirk from Mr. Yang's request." That's good, that's good." Yang Kai stretched out his hand and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, leaning half of his body on third brother's body as he said, "In addition to those spirit grasses and miraculous medicines, if there are any high-rank source crystals or rare treasures, this young master's injuries should heal faster." What does source crystals and treasures have to do with injuries? Fan Ku and the others really want to question Yang Kai. Isn't this clearly extortion? You three can rest assured. Once this young master's injuries are healed, this young master will leave the ancient lands. I won't trouble you for too long. Yang Kai squeezed out a harmless smile and said weakly. The corners of Fan Ku's eyes twitched as he said insincerely, "Mr. Yang is too polite. With Mr. Yang's identity, it doesn't matter how long you stay in the ancient lands." Ah, that's right. Yang Kai suddenly seemed to remember something and said, "Since Shi Hua has been executed, then the treasures he plundered all these years are useless. I'll have to trouble you to go to his palace and carefully count them. Then send them to me. In any case, they are Ruashi's spoils of war. When she comes out of the blood door, I'll have to give them to her." As soon as this statement came out, Fan Ku and the others only felt their hearts bleed. But since Yang Kai used the descendant of Tianxing as an excuse, they didn't dare to refute. Fan Wu nodded and said, "Senior Yang is right. Shi Hua has indeed plundered some good things over the years. This king will take some people to count them and send them to Senior Yang." After saying that, he looked at Wan Feng and said, "Madam Feng, please take good care of Senior Yang." Wan Feng nodded, "I understand." Then she turned to Yang Kai and said, "Mr. Yang, this mistress will take you back to the palace." Yang Kai nodded. Wan Feng immediately used her strength to wrap Yang Kai and third brother around her and flew away. Before leaving, Yang Kai waved to Fan Ku and Song Go. "Gentlemen, this young master will be waiting for the good news. Please take good care of me." Fan Ku and Song Go showed smiles that were uglier than crying as they cupped their fists to see him off. After Yang Kai and the others disappeared from sight, Fan Ku's face suddenly fell as he shook his head and smiled bitterly. It's easy to invite the devil in, but difficult to send him away. Song Go looked at him and said, "Shi Hua and the others, are we really going to give them all to him? Shi Hua has collected a lot of wealth over the years." Fan Ku glanced at him lightly and asked, "Is his life more important than his treasures?" Song Go said, "He doesn't know how much wealth Shi Hua has. He is just a first-order Emperor Realm Master. Even if we give him a little, he will laugh his head off. How can he eat so many good things?" Fan Ku coldly snorted. He doesn't know, but Madame Feng does. When the time comes, if he asks Madame Feng about it, and she lets it slip, how can we explain it? Song Go frowned. Madame Feng isn't a talkative person, is she? Fan Ku sighed. If he uses the name of a descendant of Tianxing to ask for Shi Hua's inheritance, I'm afraid Madame Feng won't dare to deceive him. When Song Go heard this, he also sighed heavily, his face full of pain. Towering mountains, drifting clouds, and at the top of the mountains, palaces dotted with strange birds and beasts flew about. It was a paradise. This was where the Luanfeng's palace was located. As the palace of one of the four Saint Masters, this place naturally occupied an excellent earth vein, and the world energy here was extremely rich and auspicious. The Luanfeng wrapped Yang Kai and third brother and flew to the ground. Yang Kai's eyes shone as he looked around, secretly praising this place. After they landed, beautiful women dressed as maidservants immediately came forward to greet them. There were 8 of them in 2 rows, each of them emitting an awe-inspiring demonic chi. Obviously, they were all members of the monster race. Sweeping them with his divine sense, Yang Kai found that these 8 maidservants were all first-order Emperor Realm Masters. The maidservants walked forward and bowed in unison. "Greetings, master." The Luanfeng waved her hand, allowing them to rise, then pointed to Yang Kai and said, "This Sir Yang is this queen's honored guest, and will be staying in my Feng Luo palace for a few days. Tell the servants that in the future, seeing Sir Yang is the same as seeing this queen, and they are not to be rude." The 8 maidservants were all surprised when they heard this and nodded in unison, before secretly sizing up Yang Kai. Many pairs of beautiful eyes looked over, and were surprised to find that Yang Kai was actually a human. They didn't know what kind of background this person had to be valued so highly by their master Holy Master. Seeing him was like seeing the Holy Master in person, which was a great honor. Just as they were talking, a mischievous little girl of about 7 or 8 years old suddenly appeared in front of them. This little girl looked like she was carved from jade, and looked somewhat similar to the Luanfeng. She had 2 cute little braids, and rushed over, and threw herself into the Luanfeng's arms, her little head rubbing against the Luanfeng's chest, causing the Luanfeng's full breasts to distort. Yang Kai couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva when he saw this. The Luanfeng's face was also red from the rubbing, but when she noticed Yang Kai's strange gaze, she quickly picked up the little girl in her arms and said angrily, "Xiaoling, don't make trouble. Mother has a guest today, so I'll play with you later." Saying so, she smiled apologetically at Yang Kai and said, "This little girl is spoiled, please don't blame her, Sir Yang." No. Yang Kai looked at the girl called Xiaoling, from head to toe and suddenly said, "Madam Feng, is this the girl I saw in Clear Jade Mountain?" Indeed. Madam Feng put down Xiaoling, and stroked her head lovingly. Yang Kai was amazed. Yang Kai had indeed seen this little girl called Xiaoling before. She was the little Luanfeng, who had appeared in Clear Jade Mountain. Yang Kai had not expected that after so many years, she would actually be able to take human form, and her cultivation was also quite good, reaching the second-order Dao Source realm. However, in the end, she was a descendant of a divine spirit, so it was not surprising for her to have such amazing growth. Looking at her, Yang Kai suddenly became curious. Giving birth to children required the union of a man and a woman. So how did the Luanfeng give birth to this girl? There was probably no other male Luanfeng in this world, right? Could it be that she had an affair with one of his Monster King subordinates? Thinking so, Yang Kai's expression suddenly became strange. Chapter 2606. The little girl named Xiaoling, tilted her head and blinked her big eyes curiously at Yang Kai. However, she obviously did not remember Yang Kai. Although they had met more than 10 years ago in Clear Jade Mountain, Xiaoling had just gained sentience at that time, and could not remember many things clearly. She only vaguely felt that this person in front of her was somewhat familiar. Yang Kai showed her a harmless smile. Luanfeng's heart suddenly jumped, fearing that Yang Kai would take a fancy to her daughter and kidnap her. So she quickly signaled to the maidservant beside her and ordered, "Take her away. Don't disturb Sir Yang." The maidservant quickly responded, "Yes." Saying so, she reached out and took Xiaoling's hand, excused herself and slowly left. Seeing Xiaoling disappear from sight, Luanfeng breathed a sigh of relief, and secretly decided to not let Xiaoling see Yang Kai while he was in the palace. A descendant of a divine spirit was a great attraction to any human, regardless of whether or not she would be of any help. Her status as a descendant of a divine spirit was enough to deter many people. If Yang Kai really abducted Xiaoling, Luanfeng would have no place to cry. Unfortunately, Xiaoling was quite playful, so it was not easy to keep an eye on her. "Sir Yang, this way please." Luanfeng gestured. Yang Kai nodded and followed Luanfeng into the Phoenix Gathering Palace with his third brother. The palace was huge and magnificent, and the interior was beautifully decorated. It was obvious that Luanfeng was quite fond of this aspect. The interior was decorated with flying dragons and phoenixes, showing the style of a great family. After leading Yang Kai to a courtyard in the depths of the palace, Luanfeng said, "Sir Yang, take a look and see if this place is acceptable. If you are not satisfied, let's move to another place." Yang Kai glanced around and found nothing to be dissatisfied with, so he nodded and said, "Very well." Luan Feng breathed a sigh of relief and turned to the other 7 maidservants. During this time, you will serve Sir Yang here. If Sir Yang has any requests, you must satisfy them, otherwise, this queen will not let you off lightly. The 7 First-Order Emperor realm maidservants hurriedly responded, yes. He couldn't help but feel worried. The Master of the Lord said that he would satisfy any request of Mr. Yang. What if this man was lustful and asked them to do this and that? What should they do? There was nothing good about men, whether they were humans or demons. However, since the Lord had come down, they did not dare to disobey. Mr. Yang, if there is nothing else, this concubine will take her leave first. If you have any orders, you can order them. Luan Feng looked at Yang Kai with a smile. Yang Kai nodded and said, Madam Feng, you can go do your own things. Madam Feng, please take good care of the spiritual flowers and herbs. Luan Feng smiled bitterly in her heart, knowing that she couldn't escape this calamity, but she could only reply, Mister, don't worry, this mistress will deal with it. After saying that, he respectfully took his leave. After she left, only then did Yang Kai step forward. Looking around, he pointed to a loft on his left and said, Old Third, how about you stay here for the time being? Old Third glanced at the loft and said, Does Master also live here? Yang Kai smiled and said, I live over there. He pointed to the loft next to him. Old Third immediately showed an awkward look and said, But this disciple has to serve Master. It's not far away, it's okay. Yang Kai waved his hand. Without waiting for Old Third to say anything, he looked at one of the maidservants and asked, What's your name? The maidservant bowed and said, replying to Mr. This servant's name is Tian Long. Yang Kai nodded and said, I'll have to trouble you to take her down and give her a bath. Also, find some clean clothes for her to change into. Old Third's current appearance was really inconvenient to see people who knew how many years it had been since he changed out of Ice Heart Valley's uniform. His hair was messy, his face was dirty, and there was a strange smell on his body. It smelled like sour fruits. Now that he had temporarily settled down, Yang Kai naturally wanted to let him clean up first. Otherwise, he really couldn't bear to see her in this state. Yes, Tian Long said as she took Old Third's arm and pulled her out. Old Third seemed to be a little panicked. Yang Kai hurriedly comforted him. Come see me after you're clean. Yang Kai's words were still very useful to Old Third. With a single order, Old Third immediately calmed down. After the maidservant named Tian Long was taken away by Old Third, Yang Kai waved to the other 6 women and said, You can go about your business. I don't need you to serve me. Hearing this, the 6 women all showed a look of joy. Without saying anything, they all bowed and left. They were really afraid that Yang Kai would make some rude requests. If that really happened, with the orders of their master Holy Master in front of them, they would be powerless to resist. Now that this human seemed to be easy to get along with, they felt a lot more relieved. After dispersing everyone, Yang Kai walked to the attic alone and went straight to the 2nd floor. The 2nd floor was spacious and all the utensils were prepared. Yang Kai walked to the table and sat down, sighing slightly. This trip to the ancient lands was filled with so many unexpected events that it was impossible to guard against. Facing the 4 holy masters, he experienced the long-lost feeling of powerlessness. The space divine technique that he relied on to survive was simply useless in front of the 4 holy masters. In the end, if it wasn't for the sudden awakening of Ruashi's bloodline, he was afraid that things really wouldn't end well. Ruashi was actually a descendant of Tianxing, which really shocked Yang Kai. However, now that her bloodline had awakened and she had entered the blood door, as long as she could walk out, she would inevitably inherit the power of her ancestors. Xiao Xiao, who went in with her, would also be incarnated as the Holy Spirit Taiyu. Even his embodiment had obtained the Stonefire origin, and was expected to become the next Holy Spirit Stonefire. Overall, although this trip was a little dangerous, the harvest was extremely huge. This did not include the wealth that he wanted to extort, and the 1,000,000 inner cores that he obtained from the All-Spirit's tomb. He did not know how much Shihua's inheritance was, nor did he know how many benefits the other 3 holy sages would give him. Putting aside the future and the immediate benefits, Yang Kai urgently felt a thirst for his own strength. This time, it was Ruashi's bloodline awakening that resolved the crisis, but what about the next time? If he encountered holy spirits or great emperors again, how should he deal with them? He couldn't have such good luck every time, right? In terms of means, his means and divine technique were not inferior to anyone. The space divine technique, the flowing time great emperor's shuttle seal, the golden divine dragon's origin, the ancient demon's sealing power. Which one of them wasn't a world-shaking means? In terms of secret treasures, he had the mountains and rivers bell in his hand. Just this one was enough to leave people in the dust. The only thing he lacked was his cultivation. A first-order Emperor Realm Master was neither strong nor weak, which was quite embarrassing. I still have to cultivate. I have to redouble my efforts. Thinking so, Yang Kai was no longer in the mood to think about it. With a wave of his hand, the purple origin furnace appeared in front of him. His divine sense shuttled back and forth between the space ring and the small sealed world, looking for suitable materials. He was now an Emperor-grade alchemist, and the materials he had on hand were enough to refine many Emperor-grade spirit pills. With the help of Emperor-grade spirit pills, his cultivation would naturally be twice as fast. So he planned to refine some spirit pills first. It just so happened that he could hone his alchemy skills and prepare for refining the flesh incarnation fruit in the future. Emperor-grade spirit grasses were taken out one by one, and monster cores were placed in front of him. Various pill recipes flashed through Yang Kai's mind, and finally, he decided to refine several kinds of spirit pills, according to the materials he had on hand. His Emperor Chi poured into the purple origin furnace, and the flames immediately burned, raising the temperature of the room by a lot. But before Yang Kai could put the spirit grasses in front of him into the pill furnace, his expression suddenly changed, and he looked outside. The maidservant named Tian Long from before ran over in a panic, looking anxious, as if something big had happened. "Sir Yang!" Tian Long hurriedly raised her head and shouted when she approached the loft. "What's the matter?" Yang Kai asked with a frown. "Sir Yang, you should go and take a look. I don't know what's wrong with your disciple, but she suddenly seems to have gone crazy and refuses to cooperate with the bath." Tian Long replied anxiously. Yang Kai's face darkened as he knew that things were not good. His third sister's mental state was extremely unstable, and from what Tian Long said, it seemed that her consciousness had become chaotic again. His figure flickered, and he appeared directly beside Tian Long, saying in a deep voice, "Lead the way." Tian Long was slightly startled and didn't know how Yang Kai had come out, but she didn't dare to ask and quickly led the way, flying as fast as lightning. After a while, the two came to a side hall, one in front and one behind. This side hall seemed to be a place for bathing. There was a large pool in the middle of the hall, covered with a variety of fresh flowers, exuding a strange fragrance, and the light gauze curtains around it fluttered slightly. At this moment in this side hall, the other 6 maidservants were also there, looking around anxiously. Seeing Yang Kai arrive, the 6 maidservants hurried forward and knelt on the ground, trembling. Yang Kai glanced at them and asked in surprise, "Where's third sister?" Tian Long hurriedly said, "We don't know." Yang Kai frowned. "What's going on?" Tian Long replied, "Everything was fine before, but when she was about to bathe your disciple, she suddenly seemed to have changed into a different person. She told us to catch her, but in the blink of an eye, she disappeared without a trace. There was something she did not dare to say directly, and that was that her third sister's previous behavior was like a lunatic, simply unreasonable." Yang Kai slapped his forehead, thinking that he had been careless. He waved his hand and said, "It's not your fault, get up." "Thank you, mister." The 6 maidservants in front of him all breathed a sigh of relief. Yang Kai looked around and found that there was only one exit in this side hall, and the other places were sealed. So he asked, "Did you see third sister leave here?" The 6 maidservants looked at each other and shook their heads, indicating that they did not see her. But here was the strange thing. They had searched the entire side hall, but they could not find her. If she did not leave, then where did she go? Hearing this, Yang Kai secretly made up his mind, looked around and coldly snorted, "Third sister, if you still don't come out, master will be angry." I'll give you 3 breaths of time to come out, or you will be punished by the sect rules. Chapter 2607. Yang Kai's shout reverberated throughout the side hall. Tianlong and the other maidservants looked at each other in dismay, thinking to themselves, "Is this really going to work? I'm afraid your disciple has lost her mind." But to their surprise, just as Yang Kai's voice fell, a slight noise suddenly came from behind a pillar, followed by a dirty head poking out from behind. Only a pair of bright and beautiful eyes could be seen. "Honored Master, why are you here?" Third sister seemed to be startled and ran out from behind the pillar in a panic. Yang Kai coldly glanced at her, putting on a dignified expression, but soon he couldn't help but groan, not knowing where to look. As far as the eye could see, Lao San was completely naked. There were patches of black and white on his body, making him look extremely eye-catching. When she was wearing those tattered clothes, it wasn't obvious, but now that she was naked, third sister's full and round figure was clearly visible. Part of her snow-white skin was so bright that it almost blinded Yang Kai's eyes. She didn't notice and directly came to stand in front of Yang Kai, looking apprehensive. "That?" Yang Kai scratched his chin and looked up at the ceiling, saying awkwardly, "I heard you were messing around again, so Master came to take a look." Third sister said embarrassedly, "Honored Master, don't be angry, I was just playing with them." Yang Kai quickly waved his hand and said, "Since you were just messing around, then quickly go wash up." "Yes," the third sister responded, and her delicate body swayed as she fell into the huge pool, creating a large splash of water. Yang Kai secretly breathed a sigh of relief. It seemed that third sister's understanding of him was still at the level of honored master. This saved him a lot of trouble. Tianlong and the other maidservants stood to the side. Their expressions were strange, not knowing what was going on with this strange master and disciple. Since they were master and disciple, how could this disciple be so honest with her master? Could it be that there was some kind of relationship between these two that couldn't be revealed to outsiders? This was a violation of the rules of etiquette. Thinking of this, the maidservants were flustered. "Quickly wash her, I'll go out and wait." Yang Kai was also embarrassed. After saying this, he wanted to leave this troublesome place. Tianlong anxiously said, "Honored Master Yang, if your disciple becomes like that again after you leave, what should we do?" Previously, when Kai Yang had brought his third brother over, everything had been fine, but in the blink of an eye, his third brother had gone insane. When Kai Yang arrived, his third brother had returned to normal. Tianlong was really afraid that something like this would happen again. After all, her third sister was a woman. It was not a big deal for her master to see her body. But what if she ran out and was seen by others? She wouldn't be able to live anymore. Kai Yang's brow furrowed slightly as he helplessly asked, "Then what should we do?" Tianlong pursed her lips and smiled. "Your disciple seems to be very afraid of you. Why don't you wait here, Mr. Yang? Mr. Yang was here. And your disciple shouldn't cause any more trouble." Yang Kai was indifferent for a while. Although he knew this wasn't a good idea, there was nothing he could do. He could only nod and tell Tianlong to hurry up. With his back to the hot spring, Yang Kai sat down cross-legged, held 2 high-rank source crystals in his hand, and began to cultivate. Soon, the sound of splashing water came from behind him, accompanied by the giggles of his third sister. Yang Kai couldn't help but feel a little restless. His imagination ran wild. After half an hour, Yang Kai, who was meditating, was awakened by the sound of honored master. Opening his eyes, he saw a beautiful woman standing in front of him. Her eyebrows were picturesque, her hair was like a waterfall, her lips were red, and her teeth were white. Perhaps because she had just taken a bath, her fair face was slightly rosy and exuded an alluring luster. She wore a light blue dress that fit her body perfectly. Her figure was curvaceous, and a faint fragrance wafted from her. This woman looked to be around 27 or 28 years old, like a young woman, but her true age was definitely much higher. It was just that Ice Heart Valley's secret art had a special effect on her appearance. Third sister. Yang Kai raised his brow, feeling quite surprised. He hadn't expected that after dressing up a little, his third sister would be so attractive, completely unlike her dirty appearance from before. Honored master. Third sister bowed respectfully. Yang Kai nodded lightly, stood up from the ground and flicked his sleeve. Come with me. Third sister didn't say a word, and obediently followed behind. After the previous incident, Yang Kai didn't dare leave his third sister alone in a place, lest her mind become chaotic again. With him in front of her, she would at least be able to remain sober. Bringing his third sister back to the loft where he lived, Yang Kai told her to meditate and cultivate on her own, before taking out the purple origin furnace and the various herbs he had collected before. Circulating his emperor chi, the flames inside the purple origin furnace soared, and Yang Kai poured his conflagrated knowledge into it to adjust its temperature. Immediately after, Yang Kai placed the herbs into it in an orderly manner to condense the medicinal liquid. Third sister watched in a daze full of doubts, but not daring to disturb him. After an hour, Yang Kai suddenly formed a series of seals with his hands and sent them into the purple origin furnace one after another. A moment later, Yang Kai stretched out his hand and patted the purple origin furnace, causing its lid to fly up. At the same time, several spirit pills suddenly flew out from it and were collected by Yang Kai into a jade bottle he had prepared in advance. Looking at the quality of the spirit pills he refined, Yang Kai frowned slightly. This batch of spirit pills only produced 5, and not only did they not have pill veins, but their quality was also not very good. For Yang Kai, although he had successfully refined this batch of spirit pills, the effect was far inferior to his expectations. However, Yang Kai soon felt relieved. After all, these were emperor-grade spirit pills. Although he had been promoted to an emperor-grade alchemist for a long time, he had been running around for the past few years, and had no time to calm down and refine spirit pills. So his alchemy skills were somewhat shaky. As long as he had enough materials to practice, Yang Kai believed that he could still refine good spirit pills. Putting away the 5 spirit pills, Yang Kai cleaned up the residue in the purple origin furnace before opening it again. Half a day later, after Yang Kai had collected 6 more emperor-grade spirit pills, third sister, who had been sitting and watching, finally could not help asking in surprise, "Honored master, when did you learn alchemy?" Third sister looked blank and shocked because in her memory, her honored master had never come into contact with the alchemy Tao. But judging from the situation in front of her, not only could her honored master alchemy, but he could also refine emperor-grade spirit pills. In other words, her honored master was an emperor-grade alchemist. How many emperor-grade alchemists were there in the entire star boundary? Every emperor-grade alchemist was an extremely noble existence, and only the top sects and great forces were lucky enough to have one. Ice Heart Valley used to invite an emperor-grade alchemist to serve as the sect's foreign elder, spending a lot of resources to support him every year. If that foreign elder had any requests, Ice Heart Valley would definitely satisfy them. But since her honored master suddenly disappeared, Ice Heart Valley's strength had declined, and the foreign elder had left to seek other opportunities. As a result, if Ice Heart Valley wanted emperor-grade spirit pills now, they had to spend a lot of money to buy them, or find an emperor-grade alchemist from another sect to refine them. It was extremely inconvenient, and the cost was enormous. But now, her honored master was actually an emperor-grade alchemist. How could third sister not be shocked? Hearing this, Yang Kai smiled slightly and said, "Honored master has been away for many years, and has had some opportunities." Oh. Third sister believed him and nodded silently. Yang Kai threw herbs into the pill furnace while saying, "Third sister, cultivate well. When honored master finishes refining pills, I will give you some." "Many thanks, honored master," third sister hurriedly said, but then frowned and asked, "Honored master, why do you call me third sister?" Yang Kai paused for a moment, but soon returned to normal and said lightly, "You are honored master's third disciple. If I don't call you third sister, what should I call you?" Yang Kai thought to himself, "I don't even know what your name is, so how can I call you that?" Third sister pouted and said, "Honored master used to call me Yao. Disciple's full name is Ji Yao." Yang Kai chuckled and said, "Perhaps honored master hasn't seen you for a long time, and has forgotten how to call you Yao." In that case, I will call you Yao, or from now on. Third sister giggled and said, Honored master really knows how to joke. All right, continue cultivating. Honored master is busy, so don't disturb me. Yes. After saying so, she obediently closed her eyes and began to meditate. Yang Kai secretly glanced at her, secretly sighing in his heart. He didn't know if this Ji Yao would return to normal in the future and remember today's events. Would she come to settle accounts with him? It was fine if he pretended to be Bing Yin and took advantage of her. After all, there was a reason for it. But the matter of seeing her naked body was not so easy to settle. After all, it was related to a woman's reputation. After thinking for a while, Yang Kai shuddered and hurriedly collected his thoughts and continued to alchemy. Time flew by. Yang Kai stayed in Phoenix Luo Palace for about 10 days. During this time, he had been refining pills. Just as he had expected, with the addition of a large number of materials, the quality of the emperor-grade spirit pills he refined improved, and the number of pills he produced increased. During this time, 6 or 7 spirit pills with pill veins were born, which surprised him a little. His talent in alchemy was not bad. Later, he triggered the grand alchemic Dao Tone on Water Moon Star, the home star of Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce. He was taught alchemy by the heavenly way and glimpsed a trace of the grand Tao of alchemy. He had a unique advantage in alchemy. In this regard, even little senior sister Xia Ningchang's sacred spirit medicine body was inferior. In 10 days he refined a lot of spirit pills. There were various uses, but most of them were used to assist in cultivation. Yang Kai gave some to his third sister, secretly hoping that when she regained her consciousness in the future, she would be willing to turn big problems into small ones and small ones into nothing. Third sister was overjoyed when she received the reward and thanked Yang Kai profusely. This made Yang Kai feel guilty, but he didn't dare to show it. Another 5 days passed, and Yang Kai's success rate of refining emperor-grade spirit pills had almost reached perfection. Every time he refined 9 pills, the quality of which had greatly improved, and the number of spirit pills that had formed pill veins had increased exponentially. With such skill and proficiency, refining the flesh incarnation pill was no longer a problem. Chapter 2608. When he saved Gao Shueting last time, he obtained a flesh incarnation fruit from the ancient medicine garden. As long as he could gather the other supplementary materials, Yang Kai would be able to refine the flesh incarnation pill and reconstruct Tianyan's body in Azure Sun Temple's forbidden area, the Divine Ascension Mirror. Although Tianyan was only a soul avatar, he was still a master on the level of great emperors. If he could use the flesh incarnation pill to reconstruct his body, then there would be another great emperor in the star boundary. The reason why Yang Kai spent so much effort on this matter was because Tianyan was a good person. Tianyan had taught him a soul secret technique in the Divine Ascension Mirror, and also because he had promised Tianyan a long time ago. Furthermore, it was a rare opportunity to earn a favor from one of the great emperors. As long as he could help Tianyan reconstruct his body, he wouldn't have to worry about Tianyan not helping him if he ran into trouble in the future. However, the flesh incarnation pill was extremely difficult to refine, and the herbs required were also very rare. There were 81 supplementary herbs, and all of them were emperor-grade spirit medicines that were rare and difficult to find. Although Yang Kai had a lot of spirit grasses and herbs, he could only barely gather half of them. The other half was nowhere to be found. Right now, he could only hope that the 3 great saint venerables of the ancient lands could help him gather the herbs. Once the herbs were gathered, he could start refining the flesh incarnation pill, and then return to Azure Sun Temple to find Tianyan. Thinking of this, Yang Kai couldn't help but look forward to it. A few more days passed. On this day, Yang Kai was refining pills when he suddenly sensed something and looked outside. He immediately called out, Yao, Ji Yao, who was meditating, quickly opened her eyes and respectfully said, Disciple is here. There are guests. Go tell them that master is in seclusion. They are not to disturb me, and take the things they have brought. Tell them that I will leave the ancient lands after my injuries have healed. Yes. Ji Yao heard this and quickly stood up, and went down from the second floor. Not long after, voices came from below. After a while, Jiyao returned. She respectfully handed the 4 space rings in her hand to Yang Kai and said, "Honored Master, these are the things that the 3 Saint Venerables asked disciple to pass to you." Yang Kai nodded and reached out to grab the 4 space rings. Yang Kai casually picked one up and felt it for a moment. He could not help but chuckle, thinking that those 3 Saint Venerables were quite meticulous. Each of these 4 space rings should contain something belonging to a Saint Venerable, so they were afraid that Yang Kai would not be able to tell who belonged to whom. He even deliberately left his aura on the ring, afraid that it would be mixed up with someone else's aura. The one in his hand should be Fan Hua's space ring. He wondered what Fan Hua had given him. Yang Kai was secretly looking forward to it, and his mind entered the ring to investigate. At a glance, all Yang Kai could see were 2 mountain-like piles of source crystals. A big pile and a small pile. The large pile was filled with mid-rank source crystals, while the small pile was filled with high-rank source crystals. After a quick calculation, Yang Kai couldn't help but chuckle. There were about 3 billion mid-rank source crystals, and 50 million high-rank source crystals. Such a large number of source crystals was already a considerable amount of wealth. Even if a first-class sect took out such a sum, it would likely be a loss. One had to know that 1 high-rank source crystal could be exchanged for 100 mid-rank source crystals, and 1 mid-rank source crystal could be exchanged for 100 low-rank source crystals. 50 million high-rank source crystals might not sound like a lot, but if converted, that was 5 billion mid-rank source crystals and 500 billion low-rank source crystals. This number was extremely terrifying. Yang Kai had been killing and robbing people for many years, and although he had also accumulated a lot of wealth, compared to Fan Hua's wealth, it was still a small wizard compared to a great wizard. In the entire star boundary, the number of high-rank source crystals was limited, so no matter what kind of transaction, it was basically low-rank and mid-rank source crystals. Most high-rank source crystals were used for cultivation and breakthroughs. Fan Hua suddenly received 50 million high-rank source crystals, which was enough for a large sect to operate for several years. Next to the 2 piles of source crystals was a pile of monster beast naidens. This was the ancient land, and there was no shortage of monster beast. After a monster beast died, it would naturally leave behind a naiden. However, there weren't many monster cores. There were only 112th order monster cores, 2011th order monster cores, 30,000 10th order monster cores, and none below the 10th order. Fan Hua guessed that Yang Kai wouldn't be interested in them, so she simply didn't give him any. Such an amount of monster cores, if placed in the hands of anyone else, would be a shocking amount of wealth, but to Yang Kai, who was sitting on 1 million monster cores, it was nothing. However, it was not easy for Fan Hua to obtain so many naidens. 112th ranked naidens were the equivalent of 100 monster beast of the Emperor realm. This was also the result of the 4 saint sovereigns operating in the ancient land for countless years. Otherwise, 112th ranked naidens would be unimaginable for any other human sect. Yang Kai's gaze quickly shifted to another pile of things. This pile was filled with spirit flowers and exotic grasses that emitted a lustrous glow. There were all kinds of flowers and grasses piled together, and there were also many attractive spirit fruits of different colors. Every stalk of spirit grass and spirit fruit was emperor grade, with no Dao source grade existences to be seen. I'm rich, I'm rich. Yang Kai wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth, his eyes shining with a green light. There were at least 10,000 to 20,000 of these spirit flowers and exotic grasses. Yang Kai glanced over and saw several auxiliary materials needed to refine the flesh incarnation pill. This time he was completely rich. Compared to source crystals and naidens, Yang Kai preferred these spirit flowers and exotic grasses. This was enough to make any alchemist go crazy. But, bastard, how could you place these spirit flowers and exotic grasses so casually? It's a waste of heaven's treasures, Yang Kai cursed again. These spirit flowers and exotic grasses were not properly preserved, so in the long run, their medicinal efficacies would definitely fade away. Fortunately, he had the sealed world bead, and inside the sealed world bead was his own medicine garden. Last time, Yang Kai had cleaned out the entire ancient medicine garden to expand the area of his own medicine garden. The ancient medicine garden's spirit soil was extremely rich and suitable for cultivating spirit flowers. Putting these things in the medicine garden would probably slow down the loss of their medicinal efficacies. Considering all this, Yang Kai quickly threw all the spirit flowers and exotic grasses into the medicine garden in the sealed world bead. He didn't expect to grow them again, just that their medicinal efficacies wouldn't fade away too much. There were too many things, so he didn't have time to sort them out for the time being. Yang Kai planned to wait until he had some free time to sort them out and see if he could find any auxiliary herbs to refine the flesh incarnation fruit. The space ring sent by Fan Hua only contained these things, but it was indeed a generous gift. Yang Kai was extremely satisfied. Then, he picked up the second ring and sensed it, confirming that there was Tsang Dog's aura on it. It should be the space ring sent by Tsang Dog. After a careful inspection, Yang Kai found that Tsang Dog's gift was not much different from Fan Hua's. He guessed that the two of them had agreed to send the same amount of source crystals, monster cores, and spirit herbs. This didn't surprise Yang Kai. He picked up the third ring, which should be Luanfeng's space ring. Unsurprisingly, Luanfeng's gift was the same as the previous two. The last ring, however, made Yang Kai look forward to it. This ring didn't have anyone's aura on it, but Yang Kai knew that it contained Shi Hua's inheritance. Divine Spirit Shi Hua had lived in the ancient lands for tens of thousands of years. How much wealth had he accumulated over these tens of thousands of years? Pouring his divine sense into the ring, Yang Kai was dumbfounded. He also saw two piles of source crystals, but they were at least 10 times larger than Fan Wu's and the others. In other words, there were at least 30 billion mid-grade source crystals and 500 million high-grade source crystals. Even if Kai Yang was mentally prepared, he still couldn't help but be shocked. Looking at the monster cores, there were 10 times more than those of Fan Hua and the others. There were thousands of level 12 monster cores, tens of thousands of level 11 monster cores, and fewer level 10 inner core, only a few tens of thousands. The amount of spirit herbs was also 10 times more. Just looking at them piled up, there was enough to make one happy. The wealth in the 4 space rings added together was 40 billion mid-grade source crystals and 650 million high-grade source crystals. Disregarding the monster beast's monster cores, Yang Kai already had 1 million monster cores. The Saint Venerable's gifts were only a fraction. As for the spirit herbs, there were more than 100,000. What kind of concept was 100,000 emperor-grade spirit herbs? Perhaps only a place like the savage, desolate ancient land could produce such an amount. No place in the star boundary could produce so many spirit herbs. Yang Kai's current wealth could only be compared to the sects of the great emperors, perhaps even surpassing them. After all, although the sects of the great emperors were powerful, they had many disciples and spent a lot of money on cultivation every year. Among Shi Hua's belongings, in addition to the source crystals, monster cores, and spirit herbs, there were also countless rare minerals, as well as a mess of things that Yang Kai could not identify. Most likely, Shi Hua's belongings had all been cleared out by Fan Hua and the others and sent to Yang Kai. Comparing the gifts that Fan Hua and the others gave Yang Kai were about 1/10 of their own wealth. This was already considered a very generous gift. If it weren't for the close relationship between Tianxing and Yang Kai, who would be willing to take out 1/10 of their wealth? Fan Hua and the others were probably forced into a corner. Since the beginning of counting the 4 rings, Yang Kai had been laughing foolishly, counting for a while, then counting for a while, then laughing foolishly again. Jia watched from the side with a frightened expression, not knowing what had happened to her honored master. But she did not dare to ask, and simply stood there with an uneasy expression. After waiting for Yang Kai to stop laughing foolishly, Jiao called out weakly, "Honored master." Yang Kai suddenly woke up and realized that he had lost his composure, quickly adjusting the stiff expression on his face and said, "Yao, go and tell Madame Feng that master's injuries have been healed, and I will be leaving tomorrow. Tell her not to worry." "Yes," Jiao responded and went downstairs. Chapter 2609. Outside the pavilion, Fan Ku, Song Go, and Luan Feng, the three Saint Venerables, stood there with bitter expressions. Yang Kai had accepted their gifts, but did not show any reaction, making them very anxious. They did not even see Yang Kai in person this time. Only the woman beside him spoke to him. After a while, Song Go said, "Could it be that he thinks our gifts are too light and wants more?" Fan Ku glanced at him and said, "We have already given him 10% of our belongings. How can this be considered light?" "I'm afraid he won't be satisfied," Song Go said worriedly. "It's not like you don't know how greedy humans are." Luan Feng sighed. "If he isn't satisfied, what can we do? I'm afraid we will have to spend more to avoid disaster. By the way, Sherhua's inheritance, you two didn't hide it, right?" Song Go curled his lips and said, "Madam Feng, you have also checked Sherhua's belongings. Can't you tell if he hid anything?" Luan Feng nodded. "I was just asking casually." Fan Ke smiled bitterly. "He used the excuse of recuperating to stay in the ancient lands. So we can't ask him to leave. Otherwise, if something really happens, we won't be able to bear the consequences when that descendant of Tian Xing comes out of the blood door." Hearing him mention the descendant of Tian Xing, Luan Feng and Song Go couldn't help paling, obviously very afraid. The three of them looked at each other and sighed, secretly feeling a headache. At this time, the three of them seemed to have noticed something and turned their heads to look at the direction they came from. They saw Ji Yao walking over from the pavilion and shouting, "Three Saint Venerables, please wait." Fan Ku and the others were startled, not knowing what Yang Kai wanted them to do. They wondered if that guy was not satisfied with the things in the four space rings. Did he want to ask for too much? If that was the case, his table manners would be too ugly. Luan Feng squeezed out a smile and asked politely, "Young lady, does Sir Yang have any other request?" Ji Yao glanced at her indifferently and said, "Honored Master asked me to tell you that his injuries have healed, and he will leave the ancient lands tomorrow." "What?" Song Go was overjoyed. He cried out involuntarily, "Are you serious?" He was a Saint Venerable, but when he heard that Yang Kai was leaving the ancient lands, he couldn't help but lose his composure. As soon as he spoke, Fan Ke quietly kicked him. The old dog's expression changed and it quickly shut its mouth, looking embarrassed. Ji Yao didn't even look at him. She just passed on Yang Kai's words and went back the way she came. After Ji Yao's figure disappeared, the Luan and Feng trio looked at each other in dismay and saw the relief in each other's eyes. Fan Ke secretly winked at him. The three of them suppressed the joy in their hearts and quickly walked away. Only then did they let out a sigh of relief. Song Go smiled and said, "We finally sent him away. It seems that this Mr. Yang isn't too greedy. If Yang Kai really wanted them to give him more things, they would have no choice but to prepare for another big loss." Spend money to avoid calamity. Spend money to avoid calamity. Fan Ke also wore a cheerful expression. In this world, there were probably some people who would still be happy after Yang Kai extorted and blackmailed them. If it were anyone else, the three Saint Venerables would have fought with them. Since he is leaving tomorrow, this queen will personally send him off, so as not to be impolite, Luan Feng said with a smile. Fan Ke nodded and said, "Of course, then we will have to trouble Madam Feng." Luan Feng waved her hand and smiled bitterly. Who asked him to live in this queen's territory? After all, the ancient lands is our territory. If something happens to him, I'm afraid no one can bear this responsibility. The three of them chatted for a while before Fan Ke and Song Go bid farewell and left. When they came, the two of them were worried and restless, but when they returned, they were relaxed and happy. The contrast between their moods was like the difference between heaven and earth. In the following time, Yang Kai did not refine any more spirit pills, and instead began to organize the things in the four space rings. Source crystals and monster cores were easy to deal with. Yang Kai categorized them into different categories, and threw them into the small sealed world according to their grade, piling them up into small hills for him to collect when he needed them. Only the 100,000 or so emperor-grade spirit herbs took Yang Kai a lot of effort. These spirit herbs were rare, so Yang Kai naturally had to check them one by one to preserve their medicinal efficacies as much as possible. After a busy night, Less than a tenth of the 100,000 spirit herbs had been sorted out. The next morning, Yang Kai led Ji Yao out of Feng Luo Palace under the guidance of the maidservant Tian Long, and saw Wan Feng waiting outside. "Sir Yang." Wan Feng saw Yang Kai and quickly greeted him. Yang Kai nodded lightly and chuckled. "I have troubled Madame Feng these days. And, now that this young master's injuries have been healed, it is time to leave. As for the Stone Spirit clan, I will have to ask Madame Feng and the other two Saint Venerables to take care of them." Wan Feng pursed her lips and smiled. "Sir Yang, please rest assured. As long as the three of us remain in the ancient lands, we will not let the Stone Spirit clan suffer." Yang Kai nodded with satisfaction. Wan Feng said, "The ancient lands has many barriers and it is a long journey. Allow me to accompany Sir Yang." Facing her kindness, Yang Kai did not refuse, and simply nodded before leaping into the air. Ji Yao also hurriedly followed. Wan Feng's figure flickered, and she arrived beside Yang Kai and Ji Yao in an instant, rolling her monster chi around them, before turning into a stream of light and flying out of the ancient lands. Yang Kai was now a First-Order Emperor Realm Master, and his speed was not slow, but he found that his speed was somewhat inferior to Wan Feng's. Unless he used Space Force to teleport, there was no way he could compare to her. In less than 2 days, the trio had left the ancient lands and arrived in front of the ancient lands passageway. Inside the passageway, there was a strange fog, lightning, and astral winds raging from time to time, and countless Yin souls were glaring at them. Even a Third-Order Emperor Realm Master would not dare to enter rashly. But to Wan Feng, these obstacles were nothing. She rushed straight into the strange fog with Yang Kai, and flew out of the passageway in just 2 hours. Just as his vision cleared, Yang Kai heard a cry of surprise before he could see the scenery in front of him. "Brother Yang." "HM." He did not expect that he would encounter such a good show as soon as he came out of the ancient lands. And it seemed that he was also involved in this good show. Chi Hai and the old man surnamed Wu did not talk much, but Yang Kai was not a fool and could naturally see some clues. Chapter 26:10. Looking at the hundreds of people in front of him, Yang Kai grinned. "Netherworld sect. You're really haunting me." Among the hundreds of people, there were a dozen people with extremely cold auras, including the old man surnamed Wu, and the one who dealt with Chi Hai before. They obviously cultivated an evil secret art. The aura these people gave Yang Kai was the same as Yin Le Sheng, Hua Fei Chun, and the others he encountered before. In that case, the identities of these dozen or so people were obvious. In the eastern region, other than the people of the Netherworld sect, there was probably no other family. Apart from these people, the rest of the people's strength was uneven. At this moment, they were looking at Chi Hai with eyes full of concern. Presumably, they were from the Heaven Chi Castle. Soon, Yang Kai's eyes fixed on another old man and frowned slightly. "Old man? Why are you here too?" This old man was the one who led him and Ruo Shi into the ancient lands. Old Ban. Hearing Yang Kai's question, Old Ban smiled bitterly. "They want to enter the ancient lands. I'm a fish on the chopping block." This sentence expressed the helplessness in his heart. "Old thing, shut up." A Netherworld sect disciple next to Old Ban immediately glared at him. Old Ban's expression changed and he didn't dare to speak again, but he quietly transmitted a message. "Little brother, leave quickly. These people from the Netherworld sect seem to be looking for you." Unexpectedly, as soon as his voice fell, the Netherworld sect disciple who stared at him before shouted, "Old thing, you dare to secretly transmit a message? You're courting death." As soon as his words fell, he sent a palm strike towards Old Ban. Old Ban's cultivation was only in the First-Order Dao Source realm. Although the transmission was extremely subtle, how could it be hidden from the Third-Order Dao Source realm's Netherworld sect disciple? Seeing this old man refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, the Netherworld sect disciple immediately wanted to teach him a lesson. In any case, the person the Vice Sect Master was looking for had taken the initiative to appear. Naturally, there was no need to enter the ancient lands. Since he didn't want to enter the ancient lands, it didn't matter if he was beaten to death or not. This palm strike was merciless. As the wind howled, Old Ban's face turned deathly white. Just as the palm was about to land on Old Ban's body, another palm suddenly stretched out to meet it. Who is it? The Netherworld sect disciple was shocked, but before he could see the face of the attacker, his two palms met. A tsunami-like power surged towards the Netherworld sect's disciple, and he felt as if the power was tearing through his defenses, invading his body and rampaging inside. Puff! He spat out a mouthful of blood. The Netherworld sect's disciple was sent flying backwards and tumbled several times on the ground. When he stood up again, he checked his body. His face immediately turned ashen as he said in despair, my meridians have been destroyed." He looked up and screamed hysterically. Only then did he see clearly. The one who attacked him before was actually that guy called Yang Kai. He immediately gritted his teeth and said, "You are so ruthless." Yang Kai rescued Old Ban and wrapped him up before looking at the Netherworld sect's disciple indifferently. "Boy, didn't your master teach you to respect the old and love the young? You don't even have this little bit of virtue. Crippling your meridians is just a small punishment. You can't be so rude when you see an old man in the future." The Netherworld sect's disciple was already grieving, so when he heard Yang Kai scolding him, he couldn't help but spit out another mouthful of blood. He turned to the old man surnamed Wu and said, "Vice sect master, this disciple's meridians have been destroyed. You must uphold justice for this disciple." The old man surnamed Wu coldly snorted, "What a disgrace! Get lost." The disciple was stunned, never having thought that the vice sect master would be so unreasonable. Not only did he not help him, but he even reprimanded him. He suddenly felt like he had nothing left to live for, and in a fit of anger, his eyes rolled back and he fainted. The old man surnamed Wu looked at Yang Kai coldly and snorted, "First Order Emperor realm not bad." Yang Kai grinned at him and boasted shamelessly, "So." Saying so, he turned his head and the smile on his face disappeared. He looked coldly at Chi Hai and said, "Brother Chi Hai, you seem to have done something wrong to me. This young master is very distressed." Chi Hai heard this and his face was full of shame and embarrassment, but he still gritted his teeth and said, "Brother Yang, this Chi didn't want to do this if I had no other choice. It's just that my wife's life is in danger. Unfortunately, Brother Yang has the Phoenix True Fire and is unwilling to lend a helping hand. This Chi can only rely on others." Yang Kai sighed and said lightly, "This young master admires Brother Chi's feelings for your wife. Unfortunately, even if you betrayed me, this master vice sect master doesn't seem to appreciate it." Chi Hai suddenly felt bitter. Previously, the people from the Netherworld sect came to the Heaven Chi Castle, because the Heaven Chi Castle was the local tyrant and knew more about the ancient lands than others. Chi Hai was angry at Yang Kai for being so stingy that he didn't even want to help, so he agreed to Vice Sect Master Wu's request without hesitation. He brought dozens of Heaven Chi Castle's disciples and prepared to enter the ancient lands to search for Yang Kai. But before they could enter, Kai Yang actually ran out on his own and came face to face with them. Where there is a will, there is a way. Chi Hai gritted his teeth and said, "This Chi believes that sincerity can move metal and stone. As long as Vice Sect Master Wu can lend me the Phoenix True Fire, this Chi is willing to pay any price." While speaking, Chi Hai turned his head to look at the old man surnamed Wu. The latter's expression was indifferent, and he didn't say anything at all. Yang Kai laughed and said, "Brother Chi, what you said is very good, but didn't Chi Hifeng tell you that the Phoenix True Fire is no longer with me?" Chi Hai smiled bitterly and said, "Brother Yang, the Phoenix True Fire is so precious that no one would give it away, right? I just want you to do me a favor. It's just a small matter for you, but for me, it's more important than my own life. Why are you so evasive?" Yang Kai's face turned cold and said, "Believe it or not, I've already given the Phoenix True Fire to someone, and that person is not here now. Originally, I thought that I would bring that person to the Heaven Chi Castle after she came back, because you sold me a favor last time. Anyway, it's not a big deal. But now, your wife's poison is up to heaven." Chi Hai's face suddenly changed and he said in a trembling voice, "Brother Yang, the Phoenix True Fire is really not with you?" Yang Kai snorted coldly, and didn't bother to talk to him anymore. Speaking of which, he didn't have much friendship with Chi Hai. He was lucky that he didn't kill him in the Shattered Star Sea last time. This time Chi Hai actually leaked the news that he had the Phoenix True Fire, which was really infuriating. Seeing Yang Kai's expression, Chi Hai suddenly realized that Yang Kai shouldn't be lying. After all, when Chi Hifeng returned to the Chi family fort that day, he had already mentioned this to him. Now that Yang Kai repeated it again, he couldn't help but believe it a little. For a moment he was extremely vexed in his heart. The bitterness in his mouth was like eating Chinese gold thread. He stood there in a daze, as if he had lost his mind. "Are you the deputy sect master of the Netherworld sect?" Yang Kai turned to look at the strong old man and raised his eyebrows. "Impudent!" The old man who had attacked Chi Hai earlier shouted angrily. "Kneel down in front of our sect's deputy master." Yang Kai sneered and said, "Who does he think he is? Is he qualified to make this young master kneel?" The old man still wanted to say something, but he was stopped by Old Man Wu. Old Man Wu looked at Yang Kai indifferently and nodded. "Good temperament and cultivation. Boy, this king would like to accept you into your Netherworld sect. What do you think?" The group of Netherworld sect disciples were shocked when they heard this. They never expected that their deputy master would think so highly of Yang Kai. The Netherworld sect was a top sect in the Eastern Territory, and its reputation and prestige were second only to the Serene Soul Palace. It wasn't a place that just anyone could join. However, since the deputy master had spoken, it was naturally not difficult for him to accept someone. The Netherworld sect disciple who had his meridians destroyed by Yang Kai just happened to wake up. When he heard this, he was shocked and stared at Yang Kai with wide eyes. "Accept me into the Netherworld sect." Yang Kai couldn't help laughing. Old Man Wu nodded and said, "Yes, this king is the Netherworld sect's deputy sect master, Wu Yuanzheng. As long as you agree, this king is still qualified to accept you." Yang Kai scratched his face and said calmly, "Netherworld sect disciple, this young master has no interest in it." Wu Yuanjing said, "What if this king grants you the position of an elder?" "What?" The group of Netherworld sect disciples froze in place, as if they had been struck by lightning. The Netherworld sect disciple who had his meridians destroyed spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted again. He had hoped that the deputy master would avenge him and kill Yang Kai, but he didn't expect things to develop beyond his imagination. Not only did the deputy master have no intention of avenging him, but he also wanted to accept Yang Kai into the sect, and even grant him the position of an elder. Once Yang Kai really became an elder of the Netherworld sect, how could he have the chance to take revenge? His meridians being destroyed would probably be forgotten. Elder? Yang Kai was also dumbfounded, seemingly unable to believe his ears. He turned to look at Ji Yao and asked, "Yao, is master hallucinating?" Ji Yao said expressionlessly. Disciple also heard it. She couldn't help but snort. Her honored master was the ancestral founder of Ice Heart Valley, and Ice Heart Valley's status was almost the same as the Netherworld sects. This Wu Yuanjing actually wanted her honored master to become an elder of the Netherworld sect? She didn't know if his head had been kicked by a donkey. What a joke. Wu Yuanjing said indifferently, "Of course, the premise is that you must hand over the Phoenix True Fire to this king. As long as you hand over the Phoenix True Fire, all the grievances between you and my Netherworld sect will be written off. This king will also guarantee you the position of an elder of the sect. What do you think?" Yang Kai looked excited and said, "That sounds very good." Wu Yuanjing smiled slightly and said, "This sect is a top sect in the Eastern Territory. Even an elder's status is not inferior to that of a second-class sect master. You are still young and have a promising future. In time, it is not impossible for you to climb to this king's position." Chapter 26:11. Yang Kai beamed with joy and said, "Tsk, this proposal is tempting, but this young master's grudge with the Netherworld sect is not small, especially with your sect master's legacy disciple, Yin Lisheng." Wu Yuanjing said, "This king said that as long as you are willing to join this sect, all past grievances will be forgotten. As for martial nephew Yin, this king will persuade him." I believe he is not a person who can't see the big picture. Are you really going to write it off? Yang Kai raised his brow. This king has already said it, how could I lie to you? Even if Yin Lusheng and Hua Feichen have been killed by me. Wu Yuanzheng narrowed his eyes and the smile on his face disappeared in an instant as he shouted. What did you say? Yang Kai said lightly. Yin Lusheng and Hua Feichen have been killed by me. Wu Yuanzheng shouted. That's impossible. The reason why he appeared here was because he heard that Yin Lusheng and Hua Feichen had brought a group of Netherworld sect disciples to the ancient lands to find trouble with an enemy. Yin Lusheng was the legacy disciple of the Netherworld sect's sect master, and had broken through from the lower star boundary. His aptitude was extremely good, and his future was bright. He was of great value to the Netherworld sect, and the sect master valued him very much. Hua Feichen was an elder of the Netherworld sect, and held a high position in the sect. Wu Yuanzheng, and the Netherworld sect's sect master, did not know that the two of them had brought many disciples into the ancient lands. Later, the Netherworld sect's sect master inadvertently heard about this matter, and became angry and worried. After all, the ancient lands were extremely dangerous. He was afraid that something would happen to his legacy disciple. So he asked Wu Yuanzheng to come and look for him personally. After Wu Yuanzheng arrived here, he immediately went to Heaven Qi Castle. From Heaven Qi Castle, he heard about the grudge between Yin Lusheng and Yang Kai, and also learned that Yang Kai possessed the Phoenix Fire. Wu Yuanzheng was overjoyed and realized that this trip might be an opportunity for him. If he could obtain the Phoenix True Fire and refine it, then he might become another martial flame great emperors in the future. At that time, the Netherworld sect would have to listen to his orders. He secretly made up his mind. Not only did he have to find Yin Lusheng, he also had to snatch Yang Kai's Phoenix True Fire. Therefore, he was generous enough to bestow the position of elder to Yang Kai. How could a trivial First-Order Emperor Realm Master possess a divine artifact like the Phoenix True Fire? Only a Third-Order Emperor Realm Master like him was qualified to subdue this divine fire and use it for himself. Who knew that Yang Kai would suddenly throw out such a heavy bomb? Yin Lusheng had broken through to the First-Order Emperor realm after returning from the Shattered Star Sea, while Hua Feichen was a Second-Order Emperor Realm Master. Now, Yang Kai was saying that he had killed both of them. Wu Yuanzheng's first thought was disbelief. Not to mention that Yin Lusheng still had the Emperor Authority Bead, given to him by the Netherworld Sect Master. That Emperor Authority Bead could seal the full power of a Third-Order Emperor Realm Master. Aren't you afraid that the wind will cut your tongue? The Netherworld Sect Elder who attacked Yang Kai earlier sneered. Obviously, he didn't believe what Yang Kai said. With Yang Kai's strength, how could he have killed Hua Feichen, a Second-Order Emperor Realm Master? But as soon as his voice fell, his eyes suddenly widened as he looked forward in shock. He saw a pitch-black object appear in Yang Kai's hand. It was dark and gloomy. With a shake of the wind, the sound of ghosts wailing and wolves howling could be heard. The Netherworld Purgatory Banner, the Elder exclaimed. Wu Yuanzheng couldn't help but twitch as he stared at the Netherworld Purgatory Banner. It really is the Netherworld Purgatory Banner. And the aura from this banner is rich. It doesn't seem to be a Dao Source Grade 1, but an Emperor Grade 1. In the sect, only the Elders, Sect Master, and Vice Sect Master possess an Emperor Grade Netherworld Purgatory Banner. Did he really kill Elder Hua? Shocked, the group of Netherworld Sect's disciples began to discuss among themselves. The Netherworld Purgatory Banner was an artifact that every Netherworld Sect disciple could refine. But the power of the artifact varied according to each person's cultivation. The one in Yang Kai's hand was the Emperor artifact left behind by Hua Feichen after his death. Some disciples couldn't distinguish the aura from the banner. However, Wu Yuanzheng and the other elder immediately realized that this banner belonged to Hua Feichen. For a moment, Wu Yuanzheng's face turned ashen. If Hua Feichen died, then Yin Lusheng, who was with him, wouldn't have a good end. The sect master regarded Yin Lusheng as the future successor of the Netherworld sect, and spent a lot of effort on him. If he died, who could calm the sect master's anger? You really killed Elder Hua. The Netherworld sect elder flew into a rage and roared. Little brat, Hand over your life. Enraged, he flew out without hesitation. Black chi surged out from his body, giving off a frightening aura. It was as if he wanted to kill Kai Yang to avenge Hua Feichen. It was unknown what kind of relationship he had with Hua Feichen. Wu Yuanjing was shocked and quickly shouted, "Elder Zhong, come back!" Although Yang Kai was only a first-order Emperor Realm Master, since he could kill Hua Feichen, then Elder Zhong was definitely not his opponent. Elder Zhong was so angry that he lost his mind, but Yang Kai saw through him. But his shout was undoubtedly a little too late. Looking at Elder Zhong who was flying towards him, Yang Kai's face didn't show any surprise. He just chuckled and said, "Elder Zhong, don't be anxious. This young master will send you to accompany Hua Feichen." He slowly raised his hand and was about to attack when a beautiful figure suddenly flashed behind him. Ji Yao, exuding an extremely cold aura, stood in front of him and clenched her jade hand slightly, summoning a long sword. An astonishing aura suddenly spread out, and Ji Yao seemed to have transformed into an iceberg that would not melt for 10,000 years. Anyone who dared to approach her would be frozen. Second Order Emperor Realm Master. Elder Zhong turned pale with fright and was horrified. Although he had seen Ji Yao before, because she had been standing behind Yang Kai, he thought that this woman was Yang Kai's attendant or maidservant. How strong could Yang Kai's attendant or maidservant be if she was just a First-Order Emperor Realm Master? Not to mention him, even Wu Yuanzheng did not look at Ji Yao from beginning to end. It was not until Ji Yao attacked that they realized how wrong they were. This woman, who was quietly standing behind Yang Kai, was actually a Second-Order Emperor Realm Master, much stronger than Yang Kai. Ji Yao unsheathed her sword, and a sword light flashed and a sword hum rang out. An ice domain suddenly spread out and enveloped Elder Zhong. In midair, Elder Zhong felt his body stiffen as he was enveloped by the ice principles. His Emperor Qi was unable to circulate properly, and his hair and beard were instantly frozen. "I'm not her opponent." Elder Zhong's eyes widened as he shouted with all his might, "Vice Sect Master, save me!" But how could Wu Yuanjing save him? This Elder Zhong had attacked without warning, and his speed was so fast that he was not far away from Yang Kai. Even if Wu Yuanjing wanted to save him, it would be too late. Under everyone's gaze, the sword light in Ji Yao's hand flashed briefly, before she returned to her original motionless posture, as if she had never moved. However, an ice flower strangely appeared on Elder Zhong's chest. The ice flower had 6 petals. It was crystal clear and beautiful, but this extreme beauty was accompanied by a shocking murderous intent. With a light cracking sound, the ice flower suddenly spread out and covered Elder Zhong's body, completely wrapping him in it. Through the crystal clear ice wall, hundreds of pairs of eyes could still see Elder Zhong's frozen expression of horror. Elder Zhong, who had been frozen into a block of ice, fell from the sky and shattered the moment he hit the ground. Even Elder Zhong, who had been sealed in ice, was torn apart without a trace of blood. Instant kill. A First-Order Emperor Realm Elder of the Netherworld sect had been killed in a single strike by this otherworldly woman. The strong visual impact shocked everyone's soul, and they were unable to recover for a long time. "Those who dare to shout in front of honored master will die," Ji Yao said coolly as her beautiful eyes swept across the crowd. Anyone who met her gaze could not help but shudder. Only Wu Yuanjing's anger erupted like a volcano, almost setting him on fire. His robes fluttered without wind, and his hair danced wildly as he said in a cold voice, "Good, good, good. It seems that this sect has been silent for so long that any random cat or dog dares to kill an elder of this sect." While speaking, he glared at Yang Kai and shouted, "Yang Kai, even if you hand over the Phoenix True Fire today, you will die for sure." An elder-level master had died in front of him. If he did not kill the culprit, he would not be able to give the sect an explanation. Yang Kai sneered, "You want to kill this young master? Let's see if you have the ability. Then this king will open your eyes today." Wu Yuanjing grinned and said coldly, "Don't worry, this king won't kill you quickly. I will make you bleed every drop of blood in your body. As for the 2 women beside you, they will know what it means to live a life worse than death. Vice Sect Master, kill them and avenge Elder Zhong. Kill them." Those two women are quite beautiful. We can enjoy them before we kill them. Vice Sect Master is in for a treat. That's right, that's right. Haha, those two women are blind. Of all the people they could follow, they actually chose to follow this little brat. Now they're out of luck. After the group of Netherworld sect disciples recovered from the shock of seeing Elder Zhong killed, they were suddenly filled with confidence because they had Wu Yuanzheng. Wu Yuanzheng was the Vice Sect Master of Netherworld Sect, a Third-Order Emperor Realm Master, second only to the Sect Master in terms of strength. With the Vice Sect Master taking action, this man and two women would definitely not be able to escape. Senior Yang, how about leaving this person to this mistress? Luan Feng heard the profanities of the group of Netherworld Sect disciples, and a cold light flashed across her beautiful eyes as she spoke in a low voice. Yang Kai grinned meaningfully and said, I was just about to borrow Madame Feng's strength. A Third-Order Emperor Realm Master was much stronger than him. Even if he used all his means, he would have to pay a heavy price to kill this person. The reason why Yang Kai was so fearless was because he had Luan Feng by his side. Otherwise, he would have fled with Ji Yao long ago. But now Wu Yuanzheng was probably out of luck. He shamelessly wanted Luan Feng to know what it meant to live a life worse than death. Even the heavens would not be able to save him. Chapter 26:12. While Yang Kai was secretly communicating with the Luan Feng, Wu Yuanzheng had already leaped into the air and swooped down like a hunting eagle. His momentum was ferocious as he shouted, Kneel for me. Hua Fei-chun was dead, Yin Le-sheng was dead, and even Elder Zhong was dead. The Netherworld sect had suffered heavy losses this time. Wu Yuanzheng wanted to use Yang Kai and the others to show the world what kind of tragic fate awaited those who killed the Netherworld sect. As he swung his palm down, the pressure of a Third-Order Emperor Realm Master surged out and solidified the surrounding space. It was as if a mountain was falling from the sky instead of a person. Many Netherworld sect disciples watched in excitement, looking forward to the scene of Yang Kai and the others kneeling and begging for mercy. The dozens of Heaven Qi Castle disciples also watched with complicated expressions, especially Qi Hai, who couldn't help but sigh secretly. He knew that Yang Kai was doomed this time. Now that Yang Kai was dead, whether he still had the Phoenix True Fire or not, Qi Hai had no hope of borrowing it. His wife's Heavenly Frost Earth Rain poison was probably incurable. For a moment, he felt bitter in his heart and hated himself for being too weak and useless. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Wu Yuan sneered, while Kai Yang and the other two seemed to have been scared silly. They all stood in place, not daring to move an inch. Seeing that the palm was about to land, the Luan Feng suddenly raised her hand and pointed upwards. Her movement was extremely casual, as if she was pointing at an incoming fly. But the power of this finger made Wu Yuanzheng's face change drastically. His tyrannical Third-Order Emperor Realm aura was directly broken by this finger. His ferocious aura was like a deflated balloon. All of a sudden it was exhausted. Not only that, but there was also a terrifying finger force in front of him. Like an indestructible sword, it tore through the principal strength and protective Emperor Qi around his body and stabbed into his palm. This is impossible. Wu Yuanzheng's heart shook violently. He could not hide the shock in his eyes as he desperately poured his cultivation into his palm. He wanted to resist the finger force that was invading his body. However, his Third-Order Emperor Realm cultivation, which he had always been proud of, was like a joke in front of this inexplicable finger force. It was completely useless. Pff. A soft sound rang out as blood splattered everywhere. Wu Yuanzheng, who had pounced down ferociously, looked as if he had been struck by lightning. A bloody hole the size of a chopstick appeared in the center of his palm. His entire body flipped a few times in the air and staggered to the ground. His eyes trembled as he looked at the Luan Feng. The Netherworld sect's disciples were stunned. Many disciples of the Heaven Qi Castle were dumbfounded. What did they see? Wu Yuanzheng, a Third-Order Emperor Realm Master, had his palm pierced by a woman's finger, and he didn't even have the strength to fight back? Everyone was frightened. The entire place was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Only the sound of heartbeats could be heard. In this world, who could injure a third-order emperor realm master to such an extent. You. Who are you? Wu Yuan's face turned pale. It wasn't because of how serious his injuries were. Although the power of that finger had pierced his palm, it was only a minor injury. He should be able to recover after taking some pills and recuperating for a few days. Compared to his injuries, he was more shocked. He was shocked by the identity of this woman in front of him. To be able to injure him to such an extent, this woman's identity couldn't be too bad. Suddenly, a sensational thought popped up in the depths of his heart. Not the Huaying master. Wu Yuanjing was stunned and looked at the Luan Feng in a daze. He suddenly thought of something and said, "Then you are." The Luan Feng didn't want to talk to him and pointed at Wu Yuanjing again. But this time, it was different from before. Just now it was just pure finger force. But now, under this finger, a pitch-black flame suddenly floated out. World-extinguishing black flames. You really are. Wu Yuanjing's face changed wildly. He had obviously realized the true identity of the Luan Feng. It wasn't surprising that he could guess this. After all, this was the periphery of the ancient lands. And there was a female divine spirit in the ancient lands. At this moment, seeing the signature world-extinguishing black flames, how could he not know the true identity of the other party? Divine Spirit Luan Feng. Wu Yuanjing was horrified. If he had provoked the Huaying Great Emperors, then he might have had a chance of survival because rumor had it that as the only female Great Emperors, the Huaying had a very good temper. As long as one didn't do anything too heartless, she wouldn't make things difficult for others. However, provoking the Holy Spirit Luan Feng was a different story. Although the Luan Feng was not a person who would willfully slaughter the innocent, it was a different story. Although the Huaying Luan Feng wasn't a kind person, she wasn't a kind person either. "Master, please spare me," Wu Yuanjing shouted with all his strength, while urging his Emperor Qi to resist the world-extinguishing black flames. The Luan Feng remained indifferent. Walla. The moment the world-extinguishing black flames touched Wu Yuanjing, his Emperor Qi ignited, turning him into a burning black fireball in an instant. An extremely shrill scream rang out, causing everyone who heard it to feel their hearts skip a beat. "Master, please spare me, master, please spare me," Wu Yuanjing desperately urged his Emperor Qi. But no matter how hard he tried, he could not extinguish the world-extinguishing black flames. On the contrary, the more he urged his Emperor Qi, the fiercer the world-extinguishing black flames burned, as if his Emperor Qi had become fuel. Wu Yuanjing's screams and pleas for mercy soon disappeared, because under the world-extinguishing black flames, Wu Yuanjing was burned to ashes in less than 3 breaths, and even the space ring on his hand was completely melted. Dead silence reigned. Earlier, Elder Zhong had attacked Yang Kai, but was instantly killed by a woman with an icy temperament. Now, Wu Yuanjing had attacked Yang Kai but was instantly killed by another woman. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, no one would have believed such a thing could happen in this world. "Madam Feng, your flames are too powerful." Yang Kai watched as the space ring on Wu Yuanjing's hand melted. Seeing this, Yang Kai couldn't help feeling distressed. Wu Yuanjing was the vice sect master of the Netherworld sect, so there must be a lot of good things in his space ring. But now it was burned to ashes by the Luan Feng. How could he not feel distressed? The Luan Feng smiled and said, "This mistress was negligent, but I ask Sir Yang to forgive this mistress this time for the sake of the many good things I obtained last time." Yang Kai's mouth twitched. Since the Luan Feng had already said so much, what else could he say? "Master, please spare us, master." The dozen or so Netherworld sect disciples in front of them suddenly knelt down and begged for mercy. Now that Elder Zhong and Wu Yuanjing were both dead, they had no one to rely on. If they wanted to live, they could only abandon their self-esteem and shame. For a time, the dozen or so people knelt down and kowtowed, begging for mercy one after another. "Shut up, if you make any more noise I'll kill you." Ji Yao's expression became cold as she shouted. She was getting a headache from all the noise. The dozen or so people didn't dare to speak again, but all of them stared nervously at the Luan Feng, fearing that she would kill them in a fit of anger, following in the footsteps of the vice sect master. Putong. Another person knelt down. Yang Kai glanced over and found that this person was actually Chi Hai. Chi Hai's face was ashen as he said miserably, "Brother Yang, this Chi was wrong this time. I hope that after you kill me, you can calm your anger and let go of my Heaven Chi Castle's disciples." Young Fort Master. The group of Heaven Chi Castle's disciples were shocked. Humph. Yang Kai glanced at him, but didn't pay him any attention. He just looked in a direction and said coldly, "Netherworld sect. It seems that it's necessary to make a trip there." The Wanfeng frowned and said, "Does Sir Yang want to go to the Netherworld sect to settle accounts with them?" Yang Kai nodded and said, "Whether I want to settle accounts or not, it depends on their attitude. However, I have another matter to ask for their help." After saying that, he turned to look at the Wanfeng and said, "Madam Feng, I'll have to trouble you to come with me." Chapter 26:13. Wanfeng smiled wryly. She knew that Yang Kai wanted her to be his bodyguard, but she couldn't refuse. She nodded and said, "Mr. Yang is too polite. Since the master asked us to take care of you, this mistress will naturally do her best. However, there is one thing Mr. Yang needs to know. This mistress' identity is special. It's not convenient for me to be too presumptuous in a human sect. Otherwise, I will be hunted down by the great emperors." Although she was a holy spirit, she was still in awe of the 10 great emperors. If she was at her peak, she might be able to compete with the 10 great emperors, but she had just given birth to a daughter a few years ago, and her strength had yet to recover. If she really ran amok in a human sect, she would definitely be hunted down by the great emperors. At that time, there would never be a day of peace. Yang Kai smiled and said, "Mistress Feng is mistaken. I'm not going to the Netherworld sect to kill people." Hee. Wanfeng smiled. She didn't know whether she should believe him or not. "Let's go." Yang Kai called out and flew out with Ji Yao. Wanfeng didn't move. She turned her head and glanced at the dozen or so Netherworld sect disciples kneeling on the ground. Her beautiful eyes turned cold and she waved her hand. Asterisk bang bang bang. Asterisk with a muffled sound. The dozen or so Netherworld sect disciples burst into a cloud of blood and disappeared from the world. It wasn't that Wanfeng wanted to bully the weak. It was just that these guys didn't watch their mouths, and it was really annoying. After dealing with the remnants of the Netherworld sect, Wanfeng turned around and chased after Yang Kai. The dozens of Heaven Chi Castle disciples stood in place, sweating profusely. It was a long time before they gradually came back to their senses and realized that they were lucky this time. They were lucky to have saved their lives. "Young lord, they are all gone." An old man came to Chi Hai and whispered. Chi Hai knelt on the ground powerlessly. His eyes were blank and his face was full of bitterness. Wanfeng seemed to be very familiar with the Eastern Territory. According to her, she had transformed into her human form many times and walked around the star boundary. Due to his experience in traveling, he was extremely familiar with the geography of the various parts of the astral boundary. Under her lead, Yang Kai's group of 3 arrived at a city called Konghai City in less than a day. After entering the city, the 3 of them went straight to the Castellan Manor. Konghai City's city lord was only a first-order emperor realm master. When he heard that someone had trespassed on his city lord's mansion, he flew into a rage and hurriedly rushed over from his retreat. Before he could ask anything, Ji Yao, who had received Yang Kai's orders, released a little of her spiritual pressure. Immediately, the city master was shaken to the spot, not daring to act rashly. Under everyone's watchful eyes, Yang Kai's group of 3 left through the Castellan Mansion's space array. After the 3 left, the city master could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. His back was already drenched in sweat. Repeating the same process, he teleported several times. The 3 of them finally arrived at Purgatory City. "Mr. Yang, Purgatory City is the closest city to the Netherworld sect. It is also one of the foundations of the Netherworld sect. From here, it will take less than 2 hours to reach the Netherworld sect." After walking out of the space array, Wanfeng explained to Yang Kai. Yang Kai nodded and said, "I will have to trouble Madame Feng to lead the way." Wanfeng smiled and said, "Please follow me." After getting along with each other for a few days, Luan Feng found that Yang Kai's temper was quite gentle, and he was polite to her. He was completely different from his unruly behavior in the ancient lands that day. This made Luan Feng feel a lot more relieved, knowing that Yang Kai was not the kind of person who would run amok. After leaving the city lord's mansion, the three of them went straight to the Netherworld sect. 2 hours later, a spirit mountain appeared in front of them. In the continuous mountain range, there were many pavilions and pavilions. Many cultivators shuttled back and forth. This place was also full of world energy, obviously having an extraordinary earth vein. However, the feeling this place gave Yang Kai was not the same as the other spirit mountains and rivers, because there was always a kind of yin qi here. It probably had something to do with the Netherworld sect's cultivation. The Netherworld sect's disciples all cultivated some kind of yin secret art, and the artifacts they refined were all yin attribute artifacts. The sect also had a strange existence called the Netherworld Pond. Over the years, this spirit river treasure land had become filled with ghost qi. The disciples guarding the gate were only in the Tao Source realm, so when Yang Kai's group flew past, they did not even notice. They probably did not expect that there would be someone in this world who dared to trespass into the Netherworld sect without notifying them. After entering the Netherworld sect, the group swaggered and flew slowly, as if there was no one around. Yang Kai looked left and right, constantly looking at the surrounding scenery. Luan Feng said, "Mr. Yang, are you looking for the Netherworld sect's sect master Fubo?" Yang Kai said, "Yes, Madam Feng. Do you know where he is?" Luan Feng shook her head and said, "This mistress does not know. I have never been to the Netherworld sect before." "Then we'll have to find someone to ask." While the two of them were talking, they suddenly heard a shout from not far away. "Those people over there, stop right there." Yang Kai turned his head and saw a stream of light flying over. When it got close, the stream of light dispersed, revealing the figures of a man and a woman. The man was about 30 years old, but his face was slightly sallow, his aura was weak, and his forehead was dark. His cultivation was only in the first-order Tao Source realm, and his brocade robe showed that his status was not low. As for the woman, her eyes were full of lust, her cheeks were red, and her hair was slightly messy. Her eyes were watery and seductive. Her beauty was not bad, especially her figure, which was extremely enchanting. Her cultivation was 2 minor realms higher than the man, in the third-order Tao Source realm. When the man and woman approached, a lewd smell drifted over with the wind. Yang Kai was very experienced, and when he smelled this smell and looked at the woman's seductive eyes, how could he not know what the man and woman were doing just now? He secretly laughed in his heart. It was daytime, and they were in the mood to do this. He did not know which mountain they were at just now. Luan Feng frowned and said, "What is this smell?" Although she had a daughter, she was not the kind of girl that Yang Kai had imagined to have sex with a monster king. Instead, she gave birth to a child by using her own blood essence and yuan qi to condense a spirit egg in her body. When it came to the matters between men and women, Luan Feng was still a blank piece of paper, so how could she understand the essence contained in this smell? However, this smell made her instinctively feel that she did not like it. "Hey, what a nice mountain beauty!" As soon as the young man arrived in front of Yang Kai and the others, he suddenly stared straight at Ji Yao, who had an indifferent expression on her face. Because they cultivated an ice attribute secret art, many of the disciples of Ice Heart Valley had cold looks on their faces, as if they were trying to keep strangers at a distance of 1,000 kilometers. After washing up and dressing up, Ji Yao no longer looked as dirty as before. Her beauty was outstanding, her figure was graceful, and coupled with her cold aura, it was easy to arouse the desire of men to conquer her. The young man in front of her was undoubtedly the kind of person who liked women. Otherwise, he would not have pulled his female companion into such a shameful act in broad daylight. Scram! Ji Yao felt very uncomfortable being stared at by this young man, and immediately shouted coldly, "Ha, your little temper is quite irritable, I like it." The young man's face was extremely thick. Ji Yao clearly did not care about what he said, but he had a look of pleasure on his face, his eyes flashing as if his appetite was aroused. Yang Kai stretched out his hand and pulled Ji Yao behind him as he looked at the young man with a smile. The young man's face became cold as he snorted. Who are you? You aren't a disciple of my netherworld sect, are you? Why have I never seen you before? Yang Kai said lightly. You don't need to worry about that. We came to netherworld sect to collect some debts. Tell me your sect master. Before Yang Kai could finish speaking, the young man suddenly seemed to have found a treasure, and his eyes bulged as he stared straight at the Luan Feng standing to the side, licking his lips as he said, What a beautiful woman, ha ha ha. This young master's luck is not shallow today. I've decided, you will serve me in bed tonight. Compared to Ji Yao, that ice-cold beauty, this young man seemed to prefer a mature and charming woman. Previously, his eyes had been attracted by Ji Yao, but now that he suddenly discovered the Luan Feng, he became excited, and his breathing became slightly rapid as a wicked light flashed across his eyes. Saying so, he stretched out his hand to grab the Luan Feng. Looking at his posture, it seemed he wanted to forcefully capture the Luan Feng. Are young people nowadays so arrogant? Yang Kai was startled and quickly stepped aside. Courting death. The Luan Feng was furious. What kind of status did she have? Even if Netherworld sect master Fu Bo personally came here, he would still have to treat her with respect. But this so-called first-order Dao Source Realm youth actually dared to reach out his hand to her. Not only that, he even dared to speak obscenities and ask her to serve him in bed tonight. Even a clay figurine had a temper, let alone a divine spirit Luan Feng. While the young man reached out to grab the Luan Feng, he glanced at Yang Kai with both contempt and admiration in his eyes, as if he was saying that Yang Kai was very sensible. Just now, when Kai Yang had stepped aside, he had naturally seen it. He had thought that Kai Yang was afraid of him. This caused the young man's vanity to explode and he said, Little girl, you'd better not resist. This young master's grandfather is the great elder. If you obey this young master, you will enjoy endless benefits in the future. The Luan Feng snorted and struck out with her palm. Before the young man could react to what had happened, he was struck by the palm and exploded into a mist of blood, not even leaving behind a corpse. The woman who came with the young man instantly paled and covered her red lips with her hand, her beautiful eyes trembling violently. She couldn't believe her eyes as she stared at the pieces of flesh and blood that were falling from the sky. The grandson of the great elder, who had sworn an oath of eternal love with her at the foot of the mountain and promised her countless benefits, had died just like that? She hadn't even fulfilled those benefits yet. So how could he die like this? Even if he died, he should have given her the benefits first, otherwise, she would have suffered a great loss this time, and been played for nothing. When she thought about how this pool of minced meat and blood was still wriggling and running amok on her body, the woman's face suddenly turned pale. She turned sideways and vomited. She vomited until the sky darkened, and the earth darkened. Her eyes became dizzy. Chapter 26:14. Madam Feng, didn't you say you couldn't be too presumptuous in a human sect? Now you've killed the grandson of a great elder. Isn't that a bit inappropriate? Yang Kai glanced at the cold Luan Feng. Luan Feng gritted her teeth. He's already bullying this queen. Should I just let him touch me? After a pause, she angrily said, Mr. Yang is also not a good person. What are you saying? Yang Kai was speechless. What does this have to do with me? It's others who want to molest you, not me. Luan Feng glared at him. Why did you move aside? Kai Yang was fully capable of stopping what had just happened, but instead he stepped aside, causing Luan Feng to become even angrier. If Yang Kai hadn't moved aside, she wouldn't have killed him in anger. Haha. Yang Kai dryly laughed. It was just an instinctive reaction. He's just a piece of trash, so it's fine to kill him. Madame Feng doesn't need to care. Luan Feng's face was cold, but she still seemed to care. She suspected that Yang Kai had done this deliberately to drag her into the water. But now, she had killed the grandson of a great elder in a fit of anger, forming a grudge with the Netherworld sect. Do you know who he is? On the other side, the woman who was used to vomiting finally recovered, and accepted the fact that the grandson of a great elder had died tragically in front of her. But she still couldn't help but look at Yang Kai and the others in shock. These guys were too bold. They had killed the grandson of a great elder and acted as if nothing had happened. Not only did they not run away, but they even stood here and chatted. I heard him when he introduced himself. So he's the grandson of a great elder. Yang Kai looked at the woman with a smile. You. The woman was completely stunned. Her peach blossom eyes, which were originally overflowing with spring, were now filled with shock. She didn't know what to say. But she knew one thing. The great elder wouldn't let them go. The great elder's bloodline was thin, and in the third generation, only this grandson was left. Unfortunately, this guy was ignorant and incompetent, and his aptitude wasn't very good. All he thought about was playing with women. Many senior sister and junior sisters in the sect had fallen into his evil hands. Some of them had taken the initiative to throw themselves into his arms, while others had been forced to be humiliated. Because he was the grandson of the great elder, he had abundant cultivation resources in his hands. Thus, there were many senior and junior sisters who had designs on him. They took the initiative to undress themselves in order to obtain some useful cultivation resources. She was one of them. As for those who were forced to be humiliated, they had no way to take revenge, because that fellow had the protection of the great elder. However, this fellow was quite smart. The senior sister and junior sister, who had been forced to humiliate her, didn't have any status in the sect, so they had no one to complain to when they were wronged. As for those with status, he never used force. He always used benefits to entice them. Just like that, he had boarded the pirate ship. Who would have thought that after sacrificing her body, not only would she not obtain any benefits at all, she even witnessed his death with her own eyes. Of course, this man and two women didn't have a good ending. He was afraid that he would be implicated as well. Thinking of the scene of the first elder's rage, the woman couldn't help but shudder, her face turning even paler. Don't be afraid, Yang Kai said in a gentle voice. We won't do anything to you. What do you want? The woman asked in a sobbing voice. Where is your sect master Fubo now? Yang Kai asked with a smile, but in the woman's eyes, that harmless smile was even more terrifying than a demon. She subconsciously pointed in a direction and said, that mountain peak is where the sect master cultivates. Oh. Yang Kai looked in the direction of her finger and nodded slightly. Thank you. Saying so, he flew towards the mountain peak with Ji Yao and Wan Feng. The woman from the Netherworld sect stood there in a daze. After a long while, she suddenly shuddered and hurriedly flew towards another mountain peak. She had to quickly report what had just happened to the great elder. Otherwise, once the great elder investigated, she would undoubtedly die. At the summit of the mountain peak, the yin qi was dense. There seemed to be a huge array protecting this place, preventing the dense yin qi from leaking out. Inside this dense yin qi, one could faintly hear ghostly cries and howls, causing one's hair to stand on end. Just as Yang Kai's group of 3 arrived, an angry roar suddenly came from inside. Who goes there? Fubo. Yang Kai raised his brow and asked. Junior, how dare you call this king by his name? Do you want to die? The voice sounded again. It looks like you are Fubo. Yang Kai grinned and stepped forward, directly blending into the yin qi and disappearing. Ji Yao and Wan Feng hurriedly followed. The yin qi that shrouded the mountain peak seemed to be used only for cultivation, and had no defensive or hallucinatory properties. Yang Kai led Ji Yao and Wan Feng all the way in and suddenly opened up. A palace appeared before them. Releasing his divine sense, Yang Kai immediately felt a powerful aura inside the palace. As he walked in, he saw a tall and sturdy man standing there. His eyes were glaring at him with a gloomy expression. In any case, his Netherworld sect was one of the top forces in the eastern region. Even if it was compared to the entire star boundary, it would still be considered extraordinary. But now, someone had actually barged into his cultivation grounds. Naturally, Fubo was furious. Sweeping with his divine sense, he found that Yang Kai was just a first-order Emperor Realm Master, and became even angrier. However, he was still the sect master of a sect, so his knowledge and experience were extraordinary. Seeing Yang Kai walk in calmly, without the slightest hint of nervousness, Fubo subconsciously felt that this person's background was not small. Otherwise, How could he dare to call him by his name and break into this place? Who are you? Why have you broken into my netherworld sect? Fu Bo asked with a cold snort. Yang Kai glanced around and smiled slightly. This young master is Yang Kai. I wonder if Sect Master Fu has heard of me? Yang Kai. Fu Bo frowned. It sounds familiar. After thinking about it carefully, his expression changed and he shouted, Are you Lu Sheng's enemy? Lu Sheng was his legacy disciple, and Fu Bo had high hopes for him. Lu Sheng did not hide what happened in the Shattered Star Sea from him after he returned. He even mentioned the name Yang Kai. However, Fu Bo was too lazy to pay attention to the grievances of the younger generation, and just told Lu Sheng to cultivate more, so that he could personally take revenge in the future. But Lu Sheng was in a hurry, and after staying in the Netherworld sect for a few days, he urged Hua Feichen to go with him to the ancient wildlands to find Yang Kai. After the news leaked, Fu Bo immediately asked Vice Sect Master Wu Yuan to lead a group of people to provide support, lest his disciple meet with an accident in the ancient wildlands. But what he did not expect was that before his disciple and Vice Sect Master returned, this boy named Yang Kai actually came. It seems that Sect Master Fu knows this young master. Yang Kai grinned meaningfully and nodded. Then this matter will be easy to handle. Fu Bo turned a deaf ear to this, and his expression became gloomy as he slowly said, As far as this king knows, Lu Sheng went to find you. Did you see this king's good-for-nothing disciple along the way? I saw him. Yang Kai smiled. There was a guy named Hua Feichen with him, who seems to be an elder of your noble sect. Fu Bo's heart instantly sank when he heard this, and he shouted in a low voice, Where are they? Yang Kai grinned and said, Sect Master Fu seems to be a sensible person. They went to find this young master, but now this young master is here unharmed. What do you think will happen to them? Sect Master Fu also said that your disciple was a good-for-nothing. So this young master decided to be merciful and help you clean up your sect. No need to be polite. Fu Bo's blood boiled as he shouted angrily, That's impossible. Yang Kai said coldly, Wu Yuanzheng said the same thing before he died. What? Fu Bo was really shocked this time. Even Vice Sect Master Wu died. After a while, Fu Bo suddenly calmed down and snorted lightly. Ignorant brat. This king was almost fooled by you. With your weak cultivation, even Elder Hua could easily deal with you. So how could you kill Vice Sect Master Wu? What a joke. Yang Kai said lightly. This young master's strength is indeed not as good as Wu Yuanzheng's. But I didn't say that I killed him. The one who killed him was someone else. Fu Bo frowned, feeling that Yang Kai was not lying. His heart skipped a beat, and he quickly released his divine sense again to investigate the two women beside Yang Kai. The woman with the frigid aura had a good cultivation, actually a second-order Emperor Realm Master, which surprised Fu Bo. When he wanted to use his divine sense to investigate the Luan Feng again, he suddenly felt an extremely fierce divine sense approaching him, causing his face to pale in fright, and he couldn't help retreating a few steps in horror. Who are you, honored guest? It was only at this moment that he realized how unfathomable this beautiful woman was. Standing there, this woman gave him the feeling that he was facing great emperors. As the sect master of Netherworld sect, Fu Bo had met great emperors before. He had met the great emperors of Serene Soul more than once in the Eastern Territory. Every time he went to the Serene Soul Palace to meet the great emperors, Fu Bo's mood was exactly the same as it was now, extremely uneasy, as if this woman could take his life with a wave of her hand. This young man is actually accompanied by one of the great emperors? What is his background? Compared to this, Fu Bo was more interested in figuring out the identity of this beautiful woman. The Luan Feng snorted lightly, and had no intention of introducing herself. After all, as a divine spirit, she shouldn't have come to a human sect, so if it wasn't necessary, she didn't want to expose her identity. Sect Master Fu, do you believe me now? Yang Kai looked at Fu Bo calmly. Fu Bo gulped and glanced at the Luan Feng with a look of dread, then glanced at Yang Kai, realizing that Yang Kai was the one in charge here. So he nodded and said, With this master taking action, I'm afraid Wu Yuanzheng has no chance of surviving. With Wu Yuanjing dead, Yin Lisheng and Hua Feichen naturally didn't have a chance to survive. What he didn't know was that Yin Lisheng and Hua Feichen were both killed by Yang Kai and had nothing to do with the Luanfeng. Sighing, Fu Bo said dejectedly, "Since my worthless disciple had eyes but failed to see and provoked your excellency, he deserved to die. It's just, your excellency, and my disciple had a personal grudge after all. Since he has already been executed, why did your excellency come to my netherworld sect?" Chapter 26:15. Yin Lisheng provoked such a strong enemy and died. Although it was heart-wrenching, who told him not to open his eyes and take a closer look. He even implicated the netherworld sect, causing them to lose 2 of the Emperor Realm's elders and a vice sect master. This time, the netherworld sect's loss was huge. Fu Bo firmly believed that it was Luanfeng who killed those people, so he didn't dare to have any thoughts of revenge, and his attitude softened. What he was most worried about now was whether the other party would give up. If they were unwilling to turn a big problem into a small one, then it would undoubtedly be a disaster for the netherworld sect. The arrival of the great emperors was no joke. If they were not careful, the netherworld sect might be removed from the star boundary. Yang Kai snorted and said, "Yin Lisheng provoked me time and time again. This young master is kind and merciful, so I let him go in the shattered star sea. But I didn't expect that he would still try to find trouble with this young master, causing this young master a lot of trouble. You killed them all, so what trouble do you have? The one who is really troubled is this king bastard." Fu Bo was furious in his heart, but he didn't dare to refute. As the saying goes, it is the father's fault if the child is not taught well. A teacher for a day is a father for life. Although Yin Lisheng is dead, your responsibility as his master is not small. If you had taught him well, he would not have been so stubborn and narrow-minded. It's coming. This matter really implicates the netherworld sect and me." Although he had expected this, after hearing Yang Kai's words, Fu Bo still felt deep resentment, wishing he had never accepted Yin Lisheng as his disciple. But now that things had come to this, it was impossible for him to escape. "What does your excellency want?" Fu Bo sighed. Luanfeng stood behind Yang Kai, glaring at him, making his hair stand on end. He was afraid that if he said something wrong, it would make the other party unhappy. Take this opportunity to make things difficult. Yang Kai snorted and said, "The mental trauma and physical and mental torture your disciple brought to this young master cannot be erased. Even now, when this young master thinks about it, his heart palpitates and he can't eat or sleep in peace. That memory is like a ghost haunting me, impossible to drive away." Fu Bo raised his hand to interrupt him and said dejectedly, "Sir, please state your price." He could tell that Yang Kai didn't really come here to do anything to the netherworld sect and him, the sect master. Instead, it seemed like they were here to blackmail him. At the same time, he heaved a sigh of relief. If he could pay a price to make the other party give up, he could accept it. However, this price would not be small. Yang Kai squinted his eyes and said angrily, "Sovereign Fu, aren't you looking down on us too much? Do you think this young master can be bribed so easily?" Fu Bo was startled. Could he have misunderstood? He couldn't help but panic. He had no idea what Yang Kai wanted to do by coming to the netherworld sect. On the other side, Yang Kai suddenly changed the subject, stroking his chin and saying, "But if sect master Fu is really sincere, then this young master may be willing to settle this matter peacefully." When Fu Bo heard this, he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing Yang Kai speak so righteously just now, she thought that he was a man of principles. Who would have thought that in the blink of an eye, this fox's tail would be exposed? In the end, he was here to blackmail him. Fu Bo's expression turned ugly as he asked, "I wonder, how sincere is your excellency's request?" Yang Kai said lightly, "If I can get a few tens of millions, or even hundreds of millions of source crystals, this young master might forget about those people from your noble sect, and be able to sleep peacefully in the future." Tens of millions, hundreds of millions. Fu Bo was shocked, wiping the cold sweat from his forehead as he asked, "Mid-rank source crystals? What a joke." Yang Kai's expression became angry. Glaring at Fu Bo, he said, It seems that sect master Fu's sincerity is not enough to extinguish this young master's anger. Madam Feng, he shouted angrily. Wan Feng immediately stepped forward and said, "What is Senior Yang's order?" Wait. When Fu Bo saw the Wan Feng step forward, he was startled and hurriedly raised his hand to stop her. Cold sweat poured down his back like a waterfall as he asked weakly, "Your Excellency, are you referring to high-rank source crystals?" Yang Kai sneered. Why does sect master Fu have to pretend to be confused? Fu Bo couldn't help gulping, only now understanding how big Yang Kai's appetite was. Tens of millions or even hundreds of millions of high-rank source crystals. It wasn't that the Netherworld sect couldn't afford it, but it would definitely hurt them. Although the Netherworld sect was one of the top sects in the Eastern Territory, they also controlled a lot of source crystal loads and produced a lot of source crystals every year. But with so many disciples and so many assets, their consumption was also high. If they really met Yang Kai's needs, the cultivation resources of the disciples would be greatly reduced in the next few years. Fu Bo was furious. His sect's vice-sect master, 2 great elders, and even a legacy disciple had been killed. Yet his enemy had come to blackmail him and demanded an exorbitant price. Anyone in his position would feel uncomfortable, but his fists were not as big as his enemies. Just as Fu Bo was hesitating, a voice suddenly came from outside the hall. Sect Master Zhou Yong requests an audience. Great Elder. Fu Bo frowned, not knowing why his great elder had come here at this time. At this moment, he was like a dragon swimming in shallow water, so naturally he didn't want others to see his embarrassment. However, after thinking about it for a moment, it was better to have more people present. With Great Elder here, perhaps he could recover some of his losses. After all, Great Elder was not an outsider. Thinking so, Fu Bo opened his mouth and said, "Come in." To the side, Yang Kai glanced at Luan Feng with a smile on his face. Luan Feng's expression was cold as she snorted lightly. When she had just entered the Netherworld sect, Luan Feng had killed a man who was obsessed with women and wanted to kidnap her. That man had also introduced himself, saying that he was the grandson of the Great Elder. Now that the Great Elder of the Netherworld sect had suddenly come in person, how could she not know what he was here for? He was clearly here for revenge. In fact, this was indeed the case. After the charming woman who had followed the man who had been killed gave Yang Kai and the others directions, she immediately went to see the Great Elder and reported everything that had happened. The Great Elder was furious. After learning that Yang Kai and the others had come to find Fu Bo, he naturally hurried here. His grandson had been killed in the sect. How could he accept this? Not to mention that it was his only grandson. The hatred of his grandson was absolutely irreconcilable. Just the other party's arrogant behavior was tantamount to slapping his old face. Outside the hall, Zhou Yong walked in with a cold expression, the murderous intent in his eyes almost tangible. After greeting Fu Bo, he immediately looked at the 2 women standing behind Yang Kai. He had heard from the disciple of the Third Order Dao Source Realm that the one who had killed his grandson was a dignified and graceful woman. Luan Feng and Ji Yao's temperaments were very different, so Zhou Yong quickly determined who the murderer was. At this moment, Fu Bo frowned, thinking about how to explain the situation to the Great Elder so that he could come up with an idea. So he did not notice Zhou Yong's anger and murderous intent. Without waiting for him to come back to his senses, Zhou Yong suddenly roared out, "Lowly slave, was it you who killed this king's grandson?" "Hm." Fu Bo was startled and looked up at Zhou Yong, asking in horror, "Great Elder, what are you saying? Did he hear wrong? The Great Elder actually called her a cheap slave?" Zhou Yong stretched out his hand and pointed at Luan Feng standing behind Yang Kai, angrily shouting, "Sect Master, it was this cheap woman who killed Zhou Ji in the sect. That was this elder's only grandson." Zhou Ji. Fu Bo frowned. That ignorant and incompetent guy. He obviously knew who Zhou Ji was. After all, he was the Great Elder's grandson. If it had been an ordinary disciple, he would not have remembered him. After all, with his status, how could he care about a small First-Order Dao Source realm? But Zhou Ji was different. He was the Great Elder's grandson. Fu Bo had long heard of this person, and knew that this guy was ignorant and incompetent. Relying on the Great Elder's support, he often ran amok. However, this boy had never damaged the foundation of the sect, nor had he harmed any of the female disciples with outstanding aptitude. So out of respect for the Great Elder, Fu Bo did not bother to interfere. Who would have thought that the debauchee would actually be killed by someone, and even killed in his own sect? The person who killed him was the expert that even he was afraid of, Zhou Yong said with a pained expression. Although Jier was ignorant and incompetent, he was still young. With this old master's personal guidance, he could have become a great talent in the future. But today he died. Killed by this cheap woman. My Zhou family has no more descendants. Fu Bo's face was as black as the bottom of a pot, quietly observing Wan Feng's reaction as he shouted, "Great Elder, shut up." She was in existence on the level of a heavenly emperor. How could Zhou Yong be so blind as to insult her time and time again? How could he possibly have a good ending if he had angered her so much? For a moment, Fu Bo's intestines turned green with regret. If he had known this would happen, how could he have let Zhou Yong in? Not only did he fail to help, he even added to the chaos. Zhou Yong angrily shouted, "Sect Master, even if they are your guests, this old master must avenge my grandson." He thought that Yang Kai and the others could stand here because of Fu Bo's guests. But even if they were Fu Bo's guests, he was not afraid. As a third-order Emperor Realm Master, and the Netherworld sect's Great Elder, Zhou Yong believed that the sect master would stand on his side. But the situation was completely different from what he expected. Fu Bo's face was gloomy as he shouted angrily, "Great Elder, please consider the overall situation." "Overall situation?" Zhou Yong sneered. "This old master has no more descendants. What overall situation is there? Today, sect master, please grant this old master's wish. But if you don't, this old master will leave the Netherworld sect to kill these people." Fu Bo trembled as he realized that he was in trouble, his face turning ugly as he said, "What nonsense are you talking about? The vice sect master was already dead, and so were the two elders. If the Great Elder left the sect as well, the strength of the Netherworld sect would definitely plummet. At that time, even with a third-order Emperor Realm sect master like him, he would not be able to save the sect. I hope sect master will grant my request." Zhou Yong cupped his fists and shouted with a firm attitude. What he said just now was just a retreat in order to advance. He did not really want to leave the Netherworld sect. After all, he had devoted his entire life to the Netherworld sect. How could it be so easy for him to leave? Chapter 26:16. Zhou Yong believed that as long as he showed the slightest bit of determination, the sect master would definitely grant him his wish. After all, he had worked hard for the sect for so many years. "Great Elder Zhou, is it?" At this moment, Yang Kai suddenly chuckled and looked at him with a playful expression. "Why don't you tell sect master Fu why your grandson died?" Fu Bo was startled. That's right. As soon as Zhou Yong came in, he accused the great emperors of killing his grandson. But why would the great emperors attack a first-order Dao Source Realm cultivator for no reason? Normally, they wouldn't even look at him, let alone make a move. Zhou Yong snorted. "No matter what Jier did wrong, you can't kill him." Yang Kai was startled and was speechless. After a long time, he gave a thumbs up and praised. "Great Elder is indeed domineering." Zhou Yong said angrily, "Jier is this king's grandson. It's pardonable for him to make some small mistakes, but you all killed him. Today, this old man has come here to take your lives and avenge my Jier." Small mistakes. Yang Kai couldn't help but laugh. He looked at Fu Bo and said, "Sect Master Fu, that Zhou Ji was lustful and wanted to kidnap this Lady Feng beside this young master to serve him. Sect Master Fu, what do you think?" "Kidnap? Serve him?" Fu Bo was shocked. His forehead was dripping with cold sweat, and his eyes were spinning. He felt that there was no more light in this world. In front of this Lady Feng, even he had to be obedient and not dare to act rashly. That Zhou Ji actually dared to kidnap her? And wanted her to serve him? This was courting death. Only now did he finally understand why the great emperors would attack a first-order Dao Source Realm cultivator. And with his understanding of Zhou Ji, That hedonistic son of a rich family could really do such a thing. Yang Kai looked at Zhou Yong with a smile. He said, "Today this young master has finally witnessed great elder's might. As expected of someone from a large sect, the way you speak is completely different. It's really an eye-opener. As you said, if that grandson of yours is still alive and you personally teach him, he will be able to do so. In the future, he would definitely become a great man. After all, like grandfather, like grandson." "It's useless to talk about this now." Zhou Yong coldly stared at Yang Kai, murderous intent flashing in his eyes. Only death can quell the anger in this old man's heart. Turning around, he looked at Fu Bo and said in a low voice, "Please grant my wish, sect master." Fu Bo's expression sank as he silently cursed the great elder for being so blind today. Just as he was about to send him a secret sound transmission to explain the Luanfeng's strength, a voice suddenly rang out. Yang Kai suddenly spoke up. "Sect Master Fu, since this great elder is willing to leave your sect in order to kill me, why don't you fulfill his wish? If you continue to obstruct us like this, I'm afraid no one will be happy." When Fu Bo heard this, how could he not understand what Yang Kai meant? He sighed heavily and closed his eyes. It was as if he had nothing to do with this matter. "Many thanks, sect master." Zhou Yong was overjoyed. Turning around, the Emperor Qi in his body fiercely surged as he viciously slapped towards the place where Yang Kai and the others were standing. From the looks of it, it was as if he wanted to kill Kai Yang and the others with a single slap. How dare a speck of light compete for glory? The Luanfeng coldly snorted. She didn't seem to move, but her body suddenly appeared in front of Yang Kai, and she raised her hand, sending a jet-black flame towards Zhou Yong. As soon as the jet-black flame appeared, it gave off an aura that seemed capable of incinerating all things. The power of Zhou Yong's palm collapsed. Suddenly it collapsed. His entire body shook violently, and his body was full of flaws. "What?" Zhou Yong's face changed drastically as his eyes filled with horror. The aura of death rushed towards him as he cried out in alarm. "Sect Master, save me." He finally realized that he had kicked an iron plate. The strength of this dignified and beautiful woman far exceeded his own. She was not someone he could contend against at all. Fu Bo's closed eyes suddenly opened, but before he could say anything, Yang Kai said coldly, "Sect Master Fu, it's best if you don't draw fire to yourself." Fu Bo's heart jumped, and he swallowed the words he was about to say. "Ah!" A scream rang out as the wisp of world-extinguishing black flame turned into a ball of fire that wrapped around Zhou Yong and burned him. Just like before Wu Yuanjing's death, the more desperately Zhou Yong urged his Emperor Qi, the fiercer the flames on his body burned, as if his Emperor Qi had become fuel. "Sect Master." Zhou Yong was still screaming miserably and desperately, still trying to call for help. Although Fu Bo couldn't bear it in his heart, he didn't dare to intervene, and could only watch with a gloomy expression. After a full 10 breaths of time, Zhou Yong turned into a pile of ash, and the wisp of world-extinguishing black flame was summoned back by the Luanfeng. The current great elder of the Netherworld sect had died. After venting her anger, the Luanfeng still seemed to be angry and glared at Yang Kai. "Mr. Yang, this mistress has forgotten his space ring again." How was this forgetting? This was clearly intentional because she knew that even if she killed Zhou Yong, the space ring would never fall into her hands. In the end, it would only benefit Yang Kai, so she simply melted it down. Yang Kai was largely responsible for today's events. The Luanfeng was obviously still angry about Yang Kai stepping aside and forcing her to kill that playboy disciple. If it weren't for Yang Kai stepping aside, there wouldn't have been so much trouble today. Yang Kai wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and said embarrassedly, "It's fine, it's fine." Seeing Yang Kai like this, the Luanfeng's angry mood calmed down significantly. Speaking of which, this man had the protection of that Heaven Punisher descendant, so she really shouldn't have shown him any disrespect. But now that Yang Kai wasn't angry at all, Luanfeng felt that he was a good person. Turning his head, Yang Kai looked at Fu Bo and asked, "Sect Master Fu, Lady Feng killed your noble sect's great elder. Do you have any objections?" Not only did he not have any objections, he had a huge objection. The sect's 3 great emperors were third-order elders, And now he was the only one left. How could he not have any objections? But so what if he had objections? Fu Bo saw the Luan Feng attack with his own eyes, and recognized the origin of that black flame. When he heard Yang Kai call her Lady Feng, he faintly guessed the Luan Feng's identity, Divine Spirit Luan Feng. She was one of the 4 holy masters of the ancient wild lands, and had 8 monster king subordinates. The left and right divine envoys were no weaker than him. Although they weren't great emperors, they were comparable to great emperors, and were existences he couldn't afford to provoke. If he angered her, she could just casually send a few monster kings over, and easily destroy the Netherworld sect. Feeling bitter in his heart, Fu Bo forced a smile and said, Zhou Yong has already left this sect, and is no longer a member. Whether he lives or dies has nothing to do with this sect. His heart was also full of doubts. How could the dignified divine spirit Luan Feng be willing to follow behind a human cultivator, and be ordered around at will? What kind of hidden background did this Yang Kai have? Yang Kai looked at Fu Bo meaningfully and smiled. Sect Master Fu is really a wise man. Since that's the case, let's continue to talk about compensation. No need. Fu Bo smiled bitterly. This Fu will definitely satisfy your excellency. Previously, when he heard Yang Kai demand an exorbitant price, he wanted to bargain. But now he just wanted to send these demons away as soon as possible. His own sect's disciple had taken a fancy to the Luan Feng's beauty, and wanted to kidnap her. It was already fortunate that the other party didn't get angry and destroy his entire sect. So how could he dare to be long-winded? While speaking, Fu Bo took out a communication artifact from his space ring, and poured his divine sense into it, obviously communicating with someone. After putting away the communication artifact, Fu Bo forced a smile and said, Please wait a moment. Yang Kai nodded and suddenly said with a serious expression, Sect Master Fu, this young master actually came to the Netherworld sect for 2 matters. The first matter has already been completed, but the second matter needs to be discussed with Sect Master Fu. Fu Bo's heart skipped a beat. He didn't know what other tricks Yang Kai had up his sleeves, so he asked nervously, What other instructions does your excellency have? Yang Kai smiled and said, Sect Master Fu, don't be so nervous. To Sect Master Fu, this second matter was as easy as lifting a finger. In fact, I want to borrow your noble sect's space array. Borrow the space array? Fu Bo's mood relaxed, feeling as if he had suddenly ascended from hell to heaven, and he said with relief, No problem, no problem. He had been wondering what the other party's second matter was, but it turned out that it was just borrowing the space array. Where does your excellency want to go? Fu Bo asked tentatively. Yang Kai said, The Northern Territory. The Northern Territory is so far. Fu Bo frowned and said, Although my sect's space array can be considered a large-scale array, it can't teleport directly to the Northern Territory. If you want to go directly to the Northern Territory, you must use a territory crossing space array. As far as this Fu knows, in the entire Eastern Territory, only the Serene Soul Palace has a territory crossing space array, and it is something that has been passed down since ancient times. The Serene Soul Palace has a territory crossing space array? Yang Kai raised his brow, seeming a little surprised. This Fu has only heard of it, and has never seen it with his own eyes. Yang Kai nodded. Not to mention that Fu Bo had only heard about it. Even if Serene Soul Palace really had a cross-domain space array, Yang Kai wouldn't use it. The Serene Soul Palace was guarded by the Serene Soul Great Emperors, so it wasn't a place that just anyone could go and cause trouble. Moreover, Yang Kai had a conflict with the Serene Soul Great Emperor's daughter, Yao Lin. Last time, the Serene Soul Great Emperors didn't make things difficult for him, so if he really sent himself to their doorstep, who knew what the consequences would be? Since we can't cross territory, then help me teleport to the closest place to the Eastern Territory, Yang Kai said. No problem. This Fu will personally arrange it for your excellency later, Fu Bo promised. Mr. Yang wants to go to the Eastern Territory? Luan Feng listened for a while before asking. Yang Kai nodded and glanced at Ji Yao. Ji Yao's current state was unstable. Although she had always mistaken him for Senior Bing Yun, and was always obedient around him, Who knew when her mind would become chaotic again? Yang Kai wanted to go to the Northern Territory to send Ji Yao back to Ice Heart Valley. With Bing Yun personally taking care of her, perhaps Ji Yao would be able to recover. This kind of thing couldn't be delayed, so Yang Kai could only deal with it first. Chapter 26:17. Turning his head, Yang Kai smiled and said, "Madam Feng, do you want to come with us? The Northern Territory scenery is beautiful, and there are many outstanding people here. It would be nice to go and take a look." "In your dreams?" Luan Feng rolled her eyes at him. "This guy wants to use me as a free bodyguard? How hateful." Originally, she could have just sent him out of the ancient lands, but she had no choice but to accompany him to the Netherworld sect. Now who would want to go to the Northern Territory with him? "If you don't want to go, then don't go. What are you getting angry for?" Yang Kai rubbed his nose. Fu Bo watched from the side with trepidation. He really couldn't understand Yang Kai's origins, and why he had such a close relationship with the divine spirit Luan Feng. However, he knew one thing, and that was that this young man must not be provoked. After waiting for less than half an hour, a woman's voice came from outside the hall. "Sect Master, subordinate requests an audience." "Come in," Fu Bo hurriedly said. After staying here with Yang Kai and Luan Feng for half an hour, Fu Bo felt like there was a thorn in his back, but at this moment, it was as if he had seen his savior, his face filled with joy. Following the sound of footsteps, a woman in palace attire walked in from outside. This woman was extremely beautiful, dressed in a dignified and calm manner, and her cultivation was at the second-order emperor realm. It seemed that her status in the Netherworld sect was not low. After entering the hall, the woman glanced curiously at Yang Kai and the others, wondering who this man and two women were, and why they were staying in the sect master's retreat. As far as she knew, this place was not a place that just anyone could enter. Even elders like them were not usually summoned, and had no chance to set foot here. "Where are the things?" Fu Bo looked at the beautiful woman and asked. The beautiful woman quickly replied, "They are ready." While speaking, she handed a space ring to Fu Bo. Fu Bo took it, sweeping it with his divine sense. A faint pained look appeared on his face, but he quickly restrained himself and waved to the beautiful woman. "You may leave." "Sect Master." The beautiful woman, however, did not leave immediately. Instead, she looked at Fu Bo curiously and asked, "Why are you suddenly in such a hurry to get 100 million high-rank source crystals?" As the manager of the entire Netherworld sect, the beautiful woman was in charge of the sect's storehouse and all the cultivation materials. Although she had taken out the 100 million high-rank source crystals from the storehouse, it was still not enough. However, he had no choice but to ask about its purpose. After all, the quantity was simply too large. Without 100 million high-rank source crystals, all the disciples' cultivation resources would be greatly reduced in the next few years. When the time came, the disciples would complain, and the one who would be criticized would be her, the chief steward. "Cultivate," Fu Bo replied indifferently without even raising his eyelids. The beautiful woman stared blankly for a moment before exclaiming in joy, "Sect Master, could it be that you—" Fu Bo waved his hand. "Don't ask so many questions." The beautiful woman hurriedly cupped her fists and said, "Yes." However, there was a trace of unconcealable joy between her brows. She thought that the sect master had taken so many source crystals because he sensed the hope of a breakthrough. Fu Bo was already a third-order emperor realm master. If he broke through, he would be at the level of the great emperors. If Fu Bo really became one of the great emperors, then the Netherworld sect would definitely rise in status. Compared to the sect master's cultivation, what was a mere 100 million high-rank source crystals? The beautiful woman immediately felt relieved. "Then, this subordinate will take her leave." The beautiful woman bowed respectfully and was about to leave and prepare the space array on the way. "This king will send these guests away in a moment," Fu Bo instructed. The beautiful woman obeyed. He left joyfully. After the beautiful woman left, Fu Bo showed a trace of embarrassment and threw the space ring in his hand to Yang Kai. As the current sect master of the Netherworld sect, he couldn't lie in front of Yang Kai and the others no matter how thick his face was. However, what else could he do? Tell his subordinates that he had been blackmailed? He really didn't have the face to say that. Yang Kai took the space ring and swept it with his divine sense, but he didn't count it carefully and just put it away. He believed that Fu Bo wouldn't play any tricks. If he said 100 million high-rank source crystals, then it was 100 million high-rank source crystals. Having suddenly obtained a windfall, Yang Kai was in a good mood. Counting the income he obtained in the ancient wildlands last time, he had more than 700 million high-rank source crystals in his hands. This number was simply too terrifying. Sect Master Fu is really sincere. Yang Kai laughed and said, since Sect Master Fu is so sincere, then this young master's grievances with the Netherworld sect will be written off. From now on, the well water will not interfere with the river water. What does Sect Master Fu think? Very good, very good. How could Fu Bo dare to say no? Yang Kai said. Then, the second matter will require the help of your noble sect. Please follow me. Fu Bo didn't hesitate and hurriedly led the way. Outside the palace, the group of 4 immediately flew off in a certain direction. When they arrived at a mountain peak, Fu Bo led Yang Kai and the others down to the flat ground where a palace stood. Before entering, Yang Kai felt a clear fluctuation of space force. This was the fluctuation of a space array being activated. It seemed that the beautiful woman who had left before had made preparations. After entering the palace, the Netherworld sect disciples guarding the space array immediately saluted respectfully. The beautiful woman who had delivered the space ring also hurried over and cupped her fists. Sect Master, everything has been prepared. We don't know where the target is. Mysterious Armor City, Fu Bo said lightly. The beautiful woman nodded and turned around to signal the several disciples standing next to the space array, who immediately set about adjusting it. After a short while the space array was fully adjusted. Fu Bo smiled and stretched out his hand. This way, please. Yang Kai led Ji Yao forward and stood in the center of the space array before turning to Luan Feng with a smile and asking, Madam Feng, are you sure you don't want to come with me? Luan Feng replied expressionlessly, Have a safe trip, Senior Yang. Yang Kai chuckled and said, Then I must thank Madam Feng for escorting me. If there is time in the future, this young master will visit again to express his gratitude. The corners of Luan Feng's mouth twitched as she squeezed out a forced smile, but she didn't say anything. At this moment, the more one spoke, the more mistakes one would make. Silence was king. Yang Kai turned his head and said to the Netherworld sect disciples, Begin. The several disciples glanced at Fu Bo, and after Fu Bo nodded, they fully activated the space array. A strong light flashed, and the high-rank source crystal placed on the space array was instantly drained of its energy and turned into a pile of dust. After the light disappeared, the figures of Yang Kai and Ji Yao also disappeared. Phew! Luan Feng exhaled softly, thinking that she had finally sent this little ancestor away. For a moment, she was in a good mood, and a smile blossomed on her face. Turning around, he didn't even have the intention to say goodbye to Fu Bo. He directly left the palace and flew away. Fu Bo led a group of Netherworld sect disciples to the entrance of the palace and cupped his fists to see her off. Sect Master. The beautiful woman wore a blank expression at this moment because she found that her sect master was extremely respectful and fearful of that woman. Others didn't even pay attention to him, yet he ran out to see her off. That woman just now, who was she? The beautiful woman couldn't help asking the question in her heart. Before Fu Bo had time to answer, a loud cry suddenly came from the distant sky, melodious and clear, resounding through the sky. Vaguely, there was a huge object flying in the clouds, and it quickly disappeared. Sure enough, Fu Bo's eyes couldn't help narrowing as a sense of lingering fear appeared in his heart. Although he had some guesses about Luan Feng's identity before, he hadn't confirmed them. Now that he heard the cry and saw the behemoth in the clouds with his own eyes, how could he not know that his guess was correct? That woman really was a saint venerable of the ancient land. Ordinary martial artists didn't know much about the situation within these ancient lands, but once one's cultivation reached Fu Bo's level, they would be able to learn some secrets through various channels. including the division of forces within the savage, desolate ancient land. If it weren't for the 4 Saint Venerables and the 32 Monster King, the ancient land would have been divided up by the great forces of the star boundary. Don't ask too much, just do your own thing. Fu Bo replied indifferently. Yes, the beautiful woman respectfully replied before suddenly asking. By the way, sect master, I heard from this disciple that great elder went to your place. Why didn't I see him? The corner of Fu Bo's mouth twitched as he sighed heavily. Zhou Yong is dead. What? The beautiful woman turned pale with fright as she asked in horror. Great elder is dead? Who killed him? He provoked someone he shouldn't have. Fu Bo explained briefly before looking at the beautiful woman and saying, Elder Zhua, your curiosity is too strong. After saying that, his figure flashed and turned into a stream of light as he flew back to his place of seclusion. The beautiful woman surnamed Zhua still stood there in a daze. As if she hadn't digested the news of Great Elder's death, her face filled with shock. If she knew that even the vice sect master was dead, how would she feel? Black Armor City, located at the border of the Eastern Territory, was only 50,000 kilometers away from the Northern Territory. Above the city's space array, the figures of Yang Kai and Ji Yao appeared. Before the two of them could stabilize themselves, a swift and fierce palm strike came over, accompanied by a loud laugh. This person is mine. Yang Kai was stunned and turned his head to see a burly man with a full beard flying towards his chest. Yang Kai didn't know what kind of enmity this man had with him. However, Yang Kai was sure that he had never seen this burly man before. Sha Yong, the man is yours, the woman is mine. Hiss, this woman is so beautiful, we're in for a treat. Another man's voice sounded, followed by another figure rushing towards Ji Yao, his face full of lust, as if he couldn't wait to capture Ji Yao and have a good time with her. The burly man named Sha Yong didn't seem to care much about Ji Yao before. But now hearing this, he quickly sized her up and found that she was really beautiful, especially that cold temperament that kept people thousands of miles away, making it easy for people to have thoughts of conquering her. Sha Yong turned around and rushed towards Ji Yao shouting, Change one, change one. Gu Peng, you stole a woman last time. This time it's Uncle Sha's turn. Chapter 26:18. While speaking, Sha Yong and Gu Peng had already arrived in front of Ji Yao, each of them reaching out to grab her. Ji Yao's expression suddenly turned cold, and with a clanging sound, her sword flashed and blood splashed out. Accompanied by 2 miserable cries, the 2 who had flown over were sent flying backwards like arrows, their faces extremely pale. Papa. 2 severed arms fell to the ground. My arm. Sha Yong looked at the severed arms on the ground, and seemed to have only just realized that one of his arms had been cut off, and cried out in panic. Gu Peng's expression was not much better. What the hell? You dare to jump out and court death with this little bit of cultivation? Yang Kai looked at the 2 with a strange expression, completely puzzled. Previously, when these 2 people had rushed over in such a threatening manner, one wanting a man and one wanting a woman, Yang Kai had thought that they were very strong, but after sweeping them with his divine sense, he discovered that these 2 were only from the 3rd order Dao source realm. You, Gu Peng looked at Yang Kai and Ji Yao in horror. How did you recover so quickly? Yang Kai frowned, not understanding what he meant, but after thinking about it, he suddenly understood and said with a smile, Did you think that there would be some side effects from being teleported here? No matter how far the teleportation distance was, it would more or less cause the cultivator to feel a little dizzy. This was the side effect of teleportation. In this state, the cultivator's reaction and perception would become extremely sluggish, making it the easiest time for someone to launch a sneak attack. Therefore, under normal circumstances, the space arrays of major cities were guarded by the city lord's mansion's cultivator. Firstly, they were responsible for protecting the space array from being destroyed. Secondly, they were responsible for protecting the cultivator, who was teleported here, from being ambushed. However, the space array of this profound first city was not like this. It was located in the center of the city, and there were no guards nearby. However, There were a few people who wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to make a fortune and run amok here. The people called Sha Yong and Gu Peng wanted to take advantage of Yang Kai and Ji Yao's slow reaction to launch a sneak attack. Who would have thought that they would end up kicking an iron plate? Yang Kai was proficient in the Tao of Space. He had already used the Tao of Space to protect himself and Ji Yao when they were teleported to the Netherworld sect. How could a mere teleportation affect him? Why is this happening? Sha Yong was also puzzled. His expression was extremely ugly. Because this young master is powerful. Yang Kai grinned, but that smile made Sha Yong and Gu Peng tremble with fear. Master, please spare my life. Master, please spare my life. Sha Yong immediately begged for mercy. However, Gu Peng's expression flickered as he turned around to escape. Humph! Ji Yao coldly snorted. The long sword in her hand turned, and with a throw, it transformed into a sword light that pierced towards Gu Peng, catching up to him in an instant. His heart was pierced through, and he fell to the ground dead. As a second-order Emperor Realm Master, Ji Yao didn't need to use her true strength to deal with a cultivator from the third-order Tao Source realm. Seeing this, Sha Yong's face turned even paler, his legs trembling as he cried, I beg the two master, please spare my dog life. Yang Kai looked at him indifferently. He said coldly, you seem to have done a lot of sneak attacks and robberies. No, this is my first time, really my first time. Sha Yong raised his head and said pitifully. Yang Kai said, if you often walk by the river, how can your shoes not get wet? Since you have entered this line of work, you should have the corresponding awareness. You are too young. Don't do this kind of thing in your next life. Next life? Sha Yong was stunned, his eyes filled with horror. But before he could react, Ji Yao had already struck out with her palm and turned him into a meat paste. The surrounding cultivators all kept quiet out of fear as they stared at the beautiful yet cold woman who killed people like scything flax. They were all terrified, afraid that her murderous intent would rise and she would turn this place upside down. Yang Kai stretched out his hand and took the two space rings, but he didn't look at what was inside. These were the space rings of a cultivator from the third-order Tao Source realm, so he really didn't care about them. No matter what, he was now a rich man. So he turned his head and said to Ji Yao indifferently, let's go. Ji Yao nodded and flew out with him. After leaving Profound Armor City, Yang Kai pointed in a direction and said, Yao that should be the way to the Northern Territory. Do you know the way back to Ice Heart Valley? Ji Yao nodded. I do. Then lead the way. Master needs to cultivate for a while. Yang Kai ordered. At the same time, he threw out his small wooden boat, landed on it, and called out to Ji Yao. Unexpectedly, Ji Yao glanced at the small wooden boat and said embarrassedly, Master, it's better to use Yao's flight-type artifact. Yours doesn't seem to be very good. Yang Kai was embarrassed. This small wooden boat was given to him by Jiufeng in the past. It was Tao Source grade high rank. Yang Kai used to think that it was quite good, but now that he had broken through to the Emperor realm, this small wooden boat didn't match his status. Ji Yao obviously saw the quality of this small wooden boat, which was why she said so. Since she had a good one, Yang Kai didn't refuse. He nodded and put away his small wooden boat, so as not to embarrass himself. Ji Yao pursed her lips and smiled, as if she had sensed Yang Kai's thoughts. She waved her hand and a small, exquisite boat appeared in front of Yang Kai. This boat wasn't big, only about 10 meters long, but it was exquisitely built. At a glance, it was obvious that it was made by a great master. Rich world energy fluctuations fluctuated on the boat. It was undoubtedly an extraordinary emperor artifact. Yang Kai didn't expect that Ji Yao, who had been crazy all these years, would have such a treasure in her hands. Master, please. Ji Yao gestured with her hand. Yang Kai pretended to be dignified and nodded before flying onto the boat. Master, find a room to rest. Leave the rest of the journey to Yao. Ji Yao volunteered. Okay. Yang Kai nodded, and walked into the cabin with his hands behind his back. He found a room and entered it. Before he could sit down cross-legged, he felt the boat shake slightly, and immediately flew up like a bolt of lightning. Its speed was much faster than his small wooden boat. Not only was it fast, but the crux of the matter was that it was comfortable to stay in this ship. It was unlike his small wooden boat. If he didn't activate the wooden boat's protective shield, his face would be blown out of shape by the wind. It looks like I need to find a better flight-type artifact. Otherwise, I won't even have a means of transportation in the future. In fact, he still had a Sea King shuttle in his hand. Its grade wasn't low, and it was brought out of the solitary void-sealed world. However, that thing was good for sailing in the deep sea, but it was much worse for traveling. In terms of speed, it might not even be as fast as his small wooden boat. After sorting out his thoughts, Yang Kai entered the sealed world bead again to check. Ever since Wuxia forced the stone fire essence into his embodiment, it had been in a deep sleep, sitting cross-legged without moving. Yang Kai didn't know when it would truly be able to fully integrate with the stone fire essence. Yang Kai then went to the medicine garden to take a look, and found that the spirit grasses and medicines in the medicine garden were also thriving. The medicinal efficacies of the more than 100,000 emperor-grade spirit medicines he obtained from the ancient wild lands were no longer deteriorating. The entire small sealed world was quiet, making Yang Kai feel a little lost. Every time he came here before, there was Ruashi Lu Yen's sister Hua. Now, only the embodiment was left, and it was still in a deep sleep. There wasn't even anyone to welcome him. Shaking his head and sighing for a while, Yang Kai left the small sealed world. Sitting in the side room, Yang Kai took out a large number of high-rank source crystals, and some of the emperor-grade spirit pills he refined last time. Only then did he silently circulate his secret art, and enter retreat to cultivate. Everything he encountered in the ancient wild lands, especially the feeling of powerlessness in the face of the divine spirit stone fire, made Yang Kai feel an urgent thirst for power. Now that he had some free time, he naturally couldn't wait to enter a state of cultivation. For a time, the extremely rich world energy almost materialized, filling the entire side room, and being absorbed into Yang Kai's body at a rate visible to the naked eye. The energy contained in high-rank source crystals was extremely huge, but even so, Yang Kai's consumption was extremely terrifying. Piles of source crystals turned into dust, and emperor-grade spirit pills were consumed one after another, increasing Yang Kai's strength constantly. After an unknown amount of time had passed, the ship suddenly shook and came to a stop. Yang Kai was disturbed and woke up from his cultivation. He couldn't help but frown, not knowing what happened. Before he could release his divine sense to investigate, Ji Yao's voice came from outside, extremely cold. "Get out of my way!" As soon as her voice fell, an old voice immediately followed. "Young lady, please make things convenient. Young lady Shui Man seems to like your ship very much. Could you please part with it? Of course, the price will definitely not disappoint you. Get out of my way." Ji Yao ignored him, and just coldly said 2 words. The old voice seemed to be a little angry as it said, "Young lady, why must you keep people at arm's length? Young lady Shueman wants your ship for your own good. In recent years, the Northern Territory has not been peaceful, so if you drive such a beautiful ship through the city, I'm afraid it will easily attract the attention of others. If you attract some bad guys, I'm afraid your fate will be bleak." That's right, young lady. Making things convenient for others is also making things convenient for yourself. The price will definitely not disappoint you. Another younger voice sounded. "What's the situation?" Yang Kai asked as he walked out of the ship and stood beside Ji Yao on the deck. Looking up, Yang Kai saw a group of 3 people blocking the way ahead. A man, a woman, and an old man. The man and woman seemed to be a couple, looking very intimate. The man was handsome, and the woman was beautiful, making them a golden couple, but the look in their eyes ruined the impression they gave off. The man looked at Ji Yao with a look of amazement on his face. As he spoke, his eyes stared straight at Ji Yao, obviously moved by Ji Yao's beauty. As for the woman, there was a trace of jealousy in her eyes. Her big eyes constantly roamed over Ji Yao's body, but she found that no matter how she compared herself to Ji Yao, her mood was not good. Noticing the bewitching expression of her male companion beside her, the woman pinched him in jealousy, causing him to cry out in pain. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.